Hey, onesies, Josh Williams here with another bonus episode of the One Man Podcast for you. And this week I sit down with my buddy Efthimios Nasiopoulos, and we discuss all sorts of different things. He's a guy who I've known for a long time, and we only became friends, I guess, after working together for a week and getting to actually hang out, and as opposed to just exchanging, collegiate. I don't know how you say it, but basically just being colleagues. We worked together for a week. We hung out, and we've been good buddies ever since. And so I was really looking forward to working with him this week. And of course, we sat down here at the condo and recorded an episode. And we talked about all sorts of different things, about how he got started in stand-up, how he has been twice engaged but never made it to the altar. He talks about the ups and downs in stand-up and the things he's been through. He's even in school currently studying philosophy, and we get into that too. It's a fun episode. It was nice, very whenever we just chat in general, it's very organic and natural and genuine. It's just fun to shoot the shit, and you guys will get a good sense of this in this episode. So I'm really excited for you to have an opportunity to meet and get to know him as well. So I really hope that you guys enjoy my episode with Efthimios Nasiopoulos.
Yeah!
Then we're going to get the high-end one.
Executive
Costco membership.
You've been, right?
Yeah. My parents used to go. I made my I just never got I had a Costco membership when I was younger. Mm-hmm. And I bought a TV with a built-in VHS.
I remember those. I used to sell those when I worked at Future Shop.
Yeah, it was like this 15 or 16-inch little mini TV I just had in my bedroom. With the built-in VHS. That's how old.
Do you remember ever using the built-in VHS?
I use it all the time.
Even now?
Oh, no, now it's garbage. But those things, I can't imagine. My friend talked, was it a built-in VHS or built-in DVD? It was.
They used to have combinations with both.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a full winner. I had both. Now it's everything is digital. I can't imagine you need hardware for anything.
I don't remember last time I put a DVD.
Can you buy DVDs still?
Oh, yeah. But they're in a dirty bin at Walmart or whatever.
Just collecting dust.
Yeah. The Blu-ray, like I say, with the Blu-rays were great, but, and then there was Ultimate Blu-rays or something like that, or 4K. That was the one. Black cases.
I remember Laserdisc. Those were massive. They were like big records.
Yeah. That was pre-DVD.
Pre-DVD.
So everyone's like, oh, it's not a VHS. It's this Laserdisc.
And I think Terminator 2 is a movie that was around that time. So early 90s.
I had a friend whose dad, I guess, was well-to-do in tech in Ottawa, and he had a Laserdisc player. So again, I'm watching him take this record and put it into a thing, and I'm like, what the fuck is that? But we watched. I remember watching True Lies at his house on Laserdisc.
Oh, it's a great movie.
But he had a big screen TV in the home theaters, like one of those rear projection. Yep. Big screens with those big ass floor units or whatever. So even though it was Laserdisc, it probably didn't look great because those big screen TVs were more about the size than the clarity.
Yeah, they were all pixelated. My dad had bought one, and they were massively, and they're heavy.
Yep. Yeah, it's like rolling around a double-decker coffee table. You know what I mean? Just trying to move that thing around. But I mean, it was a statement of your wealth, right? If you had a big screen TV 25 years ago, right? Everyone's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Big screen.
Massive.
And then DVD players come out. I had one on my computer, so I would watch shit on my 27-inch Sony Vaio computer monitor. And I was some of the early ones I watched was the one with Ben Affleck and Charlize Theron, Gary Sinise. Reindeer Games. That's what it was called.
Oh my God. What an awful movie.
It was, but it looked so clear on my DVD player on my computer. I was like, oh, this is DVD. If you watch a VHS now, you're like, Jesus Christ, that clarity is bad. Even DVDs kind of look not ideal.
Yeah, and VHS had tracking where you would try and minimize the blurry lines.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you'd still watch it if it still had some blur in there.
Of course. Everyone was watching scrambled porn, at least the males back then.
Yeah, we're so spoiled now.
Yeah. The kids today, they just grab their phone and type in whatever they're looking for, and they've got it there. And decades of it.
They got the full everything database of porn. It's at their fingertips.
It's offensive now that they don't even how some people get mad about music where it's hey, you've never heard of this artist, but if they blaze the trail, it's like, what do you mean you don't know who fucking Tracy Lords and Jenna Jameson is? How do you not know Ron Jeremy?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I feel like the military and porn are always ahead of the industry for technology and stuff. That's it. Always trickles down from killing people and fucking people.
Well, they're the only ones. Yeah. You have the people who are giving money to the military outwardly, and then people who are giving money to porn privately. Yeah. No one will admit it, but these businesses are staying alive. If they weren't, look how shitty mainstream movies are because they can't get money from them anymore. You know what I mean? Everyone's downloading shit.
Right.
You know, what was I talking about? I was chatting with somebody the other day about how just they don't make money anymore. So, when I went on tour this summer, staying in a lot of hotel rooms, right? Just watching cable. Have you watched TV?
It's terrible. I hate it. Like commercials just drive me nuts.
Commercials are the worst, but I've noticed that every channel, so like the channels I would gravitate to would be like MTV. That was a weird sneeze. Yeah, it was like whoo. It just got it was like a speed bump. MTV and Comedy Central. But the thing is, they play the same show all day long now because there isn't like tons of advertising revenue because nobody's watching TV. They're all on streaming services, right?
Right.
So like Comedy Central is like The Office for like the first half of the day, and then South Park the second half of the day, and maybe there's like a 2-hour period where they play like Parks and Rec.
Really?
But it's like what shows do we own so we don't have to buy shows from anybody? They're like, all right, let's play those. MTV was like Catfish and Ridiculousness all day. That's it. Just half the day of one show, just one after the other, and then the second half of the day is, Tosh.0 ripoff.
It's brutal, but then there's so many streaming services now. Like you can't even have too many of them, otherwise you're going to be paying more than
cable.
Yeah, than cable. That was the whole thing, right? Like cable's dead because of streaming, but now there's like if you have Prime, Crave, Netflix in the States, you probably have Hulu or HBO Plus or something, and then now you're paying $50 anyway.
I'm already up to like probably $100. Like I remember my cable bill was like $100 to have all the good stuff, but I pay $20 for Crave. So Crave, Netflix, Prime, Paramount Plus, Discovery Plus, Shudder for the scary shit. Like, yeah, there's a lot of them. I pay for even premium YouTube, so I don't have to. Commercials drive me crazy. Do you know what I mean? Like it used to be that you would watch one 30-second ad, skip the second one before your video, and then you got to watch the video, and that was it. Now they interrupt the video every 5 minutes, and you're like, this is outrageous.
I only have Prime.
Only?
Yeah.
What do you watch?
I think I might have Apple TV or something like that. I might have that.
Yeah, Apple TV I have as well. Yeah. But it's part of like so
it's a part of a larger package. Yeah.
Well, that was a good way to get us kicked off into this. We just fade into this Costco discussion into porn right away. I love it. So I'm a little. I can hear myself sniffling. I might have to grab some Kleenex or something to masturbate into. Talking about porn. I always ask my guests, for starters, thank you for sitting down and shooting the shit with me.
But Did you write that down, the thank you part?
I always have to write. I have to make little notes to be courteous because I'm a giant piece of garbage. But I always ask my guests, I don't even really tell you much about them. Like, on a podcast, you're like, sure. So the episode is about you. So anyone who's unfamiliar with you, would be able to, oh, okay, sounds like a nice guy, I like his story, whatever. But I always ask, who were you before you started stand-up? So pre-stand-up comedy, who were you? What did you do? What was your thing?
I was in high school. Like I started when
early?
I started when I was 18.
Oh, okay.
I was in my last year of high school, and then I did an amateur night at Yuck Yucks. So before I was nothing. I was just like a sniveling, entitled adolescent.
Okay. Did you work any jobs, or were you just, nope, I'm in school? Like 18, you would have been graduated from high school, right? Or just graduating?
Yeah, I think when I was in high school, it was 5 years, right? We had OAC.
OAC, yeah.
Yeah. So did you have OAC?
I did. My class was the last year to have it.
So I technically graduated in 4 years. I think I went back to play football. So I was 18, maybe even turning 19 by the summer. So job-wise in high school, was I working? I was working summer jobs like where my dad was. He was a plumber, so I would just help him out at the company he worked for, and I would just do that. But that was, I think that was my first job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you a comedy fan growing up?
Like Chris Rock, Richard Pryor, and then like Andrew Dice Clay. You would smuggle in, like you couldn't watch that in front of your parents. They couldn't even know you had it. Like it was the worst.
Right.
So explicit, but like we would just huddle around like even with like
Richard Pryor was pretty explicit at times.
Yeah,
too.
so Delirious, I would say. Andrew Dice Clay, I think, was at Madison Square Gardens. I remember those vividly. And then Chris Rock's first big special that kind of blew him up. Those are the ones that kind of got me into comedy, and some George Carlin, some Bill Hicks.
Did you ever watch it on TV? Like, did you?
Oh, the Tonight Show. You just watch everyone just do their like 7 minutes.
Right, and their TV clean, whatever, 7 minutes. But you guys did watch the Tonight Show?
Oh yeah.
Okay, because I know comics who are like, no, I got an album, and that was my thing. I listened to the album, or some of them were like, I just like to make my friends laugh, and I knew that you could do it. So, yeah, I always find it fascinating. Is like, how did the person get into it?
And Star Search too. I think they used to have like these big competitions. I think Robin Williams was on that.
Probably.
Yeah.
Tracy McDonald won that.
Did he really?
Yeah.
Oh, Tracy McDonald. I was thinking
Tracy Morgan.
I was thinking
No,
Tracy. Yeah,
same guy actually. Yeah.
But I also got I went on a first date to Yuck Yucks when I was at where Absolute is now.
Yeah.
And she was an actress, and I've never saw live comedy. That was the first year I did it. It was Mike Bullard was hosting, and he's a great host. His crowd work was phenomenal. And then I forget the comic that was headlining, but like he was friends with Jim Carrey. He's a Canadian guy. He had some scandal.
Friends with Jim Carrey.
Yeah, he was an older.
Okay, you tell the story. He
did impressions, and I think he had there was some scandal around him. I think he did some unquestionable things, but I can't remember 100% if it comes to you. But yeah, they were good friends because I guess they both worked for Yuck Yucks.
This would have been a long time ago.
Oh man,
right?
I'm 44 now, so this is 26 years ago. My God, that's so long ago. What have I done? Why have I done this? So then we laughed, we loved the show, and then she tried an amateur night, and then I was like, oh, you can do that? And then,
so she did it first.
She did it first, and then I was like, oh, I didn't even know, it never even occurred to me you could just do that. And then, so she kind of got me to go try it, and then I just never looked back. I mean, I've had some ins and outs, but I was 18, yeah, first set ever.
Do you remember how the set went?
I crushed my first set.
Did you? Good.
Somehow, I don't know. My second set, so Yuck Yucks would tape your sets, VHS, but they had screens on the corners on amateur nights. So if you bombed, they would just play a video of someone getting hit over the head with a shovel. Imagine your first time ever.
Right.
And you bomb, and they have a bomb blowing up on the screen just to make you feel like shit. And then if you did well, some angels would come down. So
this is an animation live on your existing current live feed kind of thing.
Yeah, there's two little shitty screens in the top corners of the sides of the stage. If you went long, they would do something. Darren Frost, I went long. Darren Frost took his shirt off and pretended he was a chicken and just kind of squawked his way to kind of cut you from the mic. It was just this weird.
This is on the TV. It's Darren Frost.
No, he just comes and walks on stage. He walked on stage and just to tell me to come out just because I'm going too long. It was this weird. Amateur night was a disaster. Yuck Yucks. It was
it's almost like they throw the young guys under the bus
all the time, or they would do a God mic and be like, "You're not funny. Get off the stage."
Really? So it doesn't even matter if you're over your time. They'll just shit on you.
Yeah, Sink or Swim. It's called Sink or Swim Mondays. So the second show I sunk, and I took the VHS cassette and I just threw it in the trash. I'm like,
oh, they give it to you? Here you go.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, fuck this. You have to bring a blank VHS cassette.
They don't even provide it to you.
Buy a 3-pound cassette tape. God. That's a long...
How long has it been since you've thought of that?
I haven't thought of that because I'm not going to sleep now. I'm thinking about that. Just walking around with this cassette tape.
Bringing it there. It's in your pocket. You got to make sure it hasn't fallen out 15 times on your way to the club. Oh, okay, didn't lose the tape. It's still there.
Yeah, now comics are walking in. They have 3 cameras. They got mics, cameras facing the stage. And I just had this cassette tape.
This cassette tape where they're going to fucking film you with a bomb going off in your face and Darren Frost squawking his way onto stage.
Yeah, so that was...
That's got to be hilarious too, because you're a tall guy and he's not a tall guy. So you got this little fucking hobbit come on stage and like squawk you off, and I could crush you. I could crush you. That's the funny thing too about comedy too. I mean, I'm a fat fuck on stage doing crowd work, talking to these people, and they're like embarrassed. And I'm like, if we were in public, you were my social betters, like this table of pretty people, and I'm mouthing up to you. Everyone's gonna go, you're not allowed to do that. They're better than you. And I'm like, I guess because they put me up here would give me a mic, I win. But it's like Darren Frost squawking in front of you. You're not funny.
Like, dude,
I'll kill you.
I'll throw you through a window.
Yeah, I dare you to do that on the street. I'll kill you. It's funny how that dynamic works. Well, that's cool, man. Like I said, I'm always fascinated to know like who people were, because some people start late. I started when I was like 27. You know what I mean? Yeah. So like I always loved stand up. Like when I was a kid, my mom used to let us stay up late and watch like Kids in the Hall and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So always loved stand up. Loved Carlin and all that shit. So you got, for you, it was like the albums. Were you the class clown?
I was a bit of a class clown, yeah. I used humor to diffuse I got out of a lot of trouble just from like, I was a good student, but like just in general, I feel if you had humor, you can just kind of dissuade people or like just send them off, like to distract them enough to forget what happened.
Did you get into fights when you were young?
Some fights, not a lot of fights though.
Yeah. I never. I think I got into 1 or 2 fights.
Yeah, I got bullied for a bit too. So,
did you?
Yeah. I wasn't always like I was big, but then there was always like bigger kids.
Right.
Yeah, I was like not even the tallest kid in any of the grades, like until grade 6 or 7. But there was always like some giant. And
he wanted to beat up the second biggest giant?
Yeah, he was a year older. This kid, James, he kicked the shit out of me. Yeah, so I didn't get a lot of fights, but I got in a few.
Yeah.
Now I just want to like go back and beat up all the bullies. Just that they're 3 kids and their wife. They don't
their
love
dad
anymore.
bods. Like they have their osteoporosis from all the fucking super tall joints.
Yeah, they don't just have unlimited amount of time to think about these things. We're planning revenge on my old bullies, but then when you're a comic, it's just like I just invite them to the show and just destroy them. Yeah, it's a fantasy.
When you started, do you remember how long? And I'm glad your story is like a lot of people, because you did well the first time. The second time you're like, fuck this, you're up. But you had that first time doing well to hang on to, where like I've listened to a lot of comics say like, imagine how many great comics we would have had if their first time had gone well. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like maybe just their first time that didn't go well, and they'd say, fuck, I don't need this, and I'll never do it again. Whereas like your first time went well, so you had that feeling, even though you got squawked off stage the second time. Did you take a long time before you went back again, or
not too long? Like a friend of mine who'd come to my first show. Actually, he was there on Friday, so he's been there since the beginning. He was very supportive. My buddy George is just like, no, just keep trying. And I didn't even know that there's other comedy clubs. I just thought there was Yuck Yuck. So there was this place called Comedy Wood that was up in North Toronto. So I went there. He made me play that VHS for my first set to a comic there.
Okay.
Because the show got canceled. So it was just like, hey, can you watch this guy's tape? And he's like, no, that's funny. Just keep at it. And then Now Magazine had a list of all these open mics. You know what's funny? Like sometimes I think it works against me because I was good when I first started. Like it just came easy to me.
Okay.
Whereas someone who did bomb the first 1,000 times and then just stuck it out, like those guys just like have that work ethic where they just get better. And I find that those guys just can quickly pass someone that just was good at comedy from the beginning.
It's hard to say because I know people who've bombed 10,000 times, and it's like I think you're just wasting stage time at this point. Like
there's those two, yeah. There's a
like
scale
if you've,
everything.
I mean, what job is going to let you come and work 10,000 shifts and fail before they're like, we're going to have to let you go. You know what I mean? We believed in you, and we I think it's fair to say we gave you enough chances.
Yeah, some people won't. Yeah, they won't stop, and it's never going to happen.
Yeah, and the thing is, I would never tell one of those people, hey, you gotta stop, because I don't want someone to come up to me one day and say that if I'm having a tear of just shitty shows. But you would think someone would be self-aware enough to go. For me, it's when they're doing the same set and it's always bombs. I'm like, listen, you have nothing to lose by writing something new. So just write something new. This stuff isn't working. Write something new.
Yeah.
But I would say I feel like it's almost a double-edged sword, because you're right. Like the idea that, you're not doing well, but you can keep going. I think some of it's delusion. You know what I mean? I've talked to a lot of guys who got like 10 people in a room of 200 laughing. They're like, man, I killed it. And it's like, no, that's 5% of the room laughing. That is a colossal fail in any scholastic system. How'd you do? I got 5% on this test. Killed it. You know what I mean? Like, no, you failed. But I think the flip side is like, you wouldn't want somebody who is self-aware their very first time, they fail and they're like, that felt terrible. I'm never doing that again. You know what I mean? That's the part that would scare me, is someone who's got it, who didn't. I feel like the best stories, all the best sports stories, were the ones who failed the first time, did well the first time and then failed the next 5 times. But they're like, but that first time, like, I know I got them. Did you ever hear the story of Brian Regan's first time on stage?
No.
Dude, it was hilarious. He was like, it was in Florida. The reason he wanted to be a comic was that he was always sleeping in school. So he was in college, always sleeping in. And then they had this comic come to their university or whatever. And he's like, it's like 7 p.m. show. He's like, this guy works at 7 p.m. I could do that. I could do that job. Where you get up, whatever. They called him Rip Regan because he was like Rip Van Winkle. He's always sleeping. So he saw this ad for like a comedy club, like I guess an hour away or whatever in a town in Florida. And he goes up and he draws like number 5. And he's like, and everybody else is like, hey, I'll trade you 1 for 5. I'll trade you 8 for 5. He's like, everyone wanted to trade me for my spot. So he's like, I didn't trade it because I could tell what I had was what everybody else wanted. So I held on to that. And he's like, and when they said my name, he's like, I had all my jokes memorized, whatever. And I go up on stage and I go to say, hi, my name's Brian. He's like, I get this big feedback from the microphone. I was like, whoa, you know what I mean? What, and the lights are in my eyes. He's like, wow. He's like, I just learned my first thing about stand up, whatever. And he's like, and then I blanked on my entire act. And he's like, you guys aren't going to believe this, but I just forgot every word of my act. And then they laughed. He's like, no, I'm not joking. And then they laughed again. He's like, no, you guys, this is a nightmare. Like, this is not. And they're laughing. So he's like, fuck, you must think I'm a big idiot. Like, and they're still laughing again. And he somehow got through, but he was like so embarrassed. He was like, no, I don't, guys, I don't know what the fuck is going on. Like, do you know what I mean? They're just laughing. He gets off stage and he's like, in the fucking headliner's like, oh my God, that was great. Was that planned? He's like, was that planned? What are you talking about?
It's the worst day of my life.
Yeah. But he went on like the next 4 or 5 times and he's like, and he remembered his act and he's like, and he bombed. All the jokes didn't do well or whatever. But for him, he's like, but I remembered that I knew I got him laughing. So that was what kept, because imagine Brian Regan just not having him as a comic out there, you know what I mean? Terrible. Because like his act sucked and he would have been like, all right, I'm not that funny, whatever. But he's like, but that first time knowing that I can get him laughing was what made him stick around.
Yeah. I had some friends and family come watch the first time. Like they're excited to see the show. And like, so in my head, like even now to this day, I'm always playing to like a few people. Either I'm playing to the comics or if like, to a comic in the back, like in my head, I'm not trying to play to everyone. So I was just playing to them and it went well. And like the second time I was like on my own, it's alone, it's dark out and I just shit the bed. And then like, it did stop me for like a few months. I was just like, or maybe longer. And then I was just like, now what? But in my heart, I'm like, oh, I can make people laugh. It's just like,
of course,
but it's insane. Cause like you have to try your first time in front of a live audience. It's the dumbest thing. It's like no other open mic. It's not like singing. It's not like a guitar or piano where you practice for years.
Right.
It's just like, hey, I want to say something funny. Do it right now in front of 300 people.
Right.
Like, why would you do that to yourself? That's insane.
Well, and the thing too is I tell people all the time, because I ran an open mic, I feel like I was in a bit of a position to maybe give some half decent advice, because everyone I talk to is like, oh, I want to do stand up. I'm trying to put together, but it's not ready yet. It's not ready. I go, it's never going to be ready. Mm-hmm. I go, because no joke is even a joke until you've done it on stage. Because if you don't know if it's funny or not, like you can sing a song and it could be a shit song, but it's a song.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's a soliloquy, it's a speech, regardless of whether you've done it in front of somebody. But with stand up, it's only funny to you until you've told people and then verified that it's in fact, okay, yes, this is a funny concept. Because you could, like, I stopped really early pitching my premises and ideas to friends, because even if it's funny, they're never going to give you the response of a comedy club. You know what I mean? A room full of people. So you go and they go, it's funny. And I'm like, it sucks. You didn't just laugh out loud. Yeah, it's garbage. So I stopped doing that to myself. I'm like, I have an idea. And then when I bring it to the stage, that will let me know if it's a joke or not.
And that's the only way to find out if it's funny or not. And it might not sound, when you write it down, you're like, oh, this is terrible premise. No one's going to laugh at this.
Right.
You're got to be like, trust me once I say it out loud.
Yeah.
Yeah. In front of a crowd.
You have to fucking be ready. And the thing is, you learn, I think one of the skills of like a professional comic is that you learn how to throw it out there on stage the first time with enough grace that if it doesn't go well, you're like, well, that's not that. I guess that's only funny to me or whatever it is, or something where the audience is like, rather than people go, nothing bothers me more than when a comic's like, they do a joke and they go, really? Nothing? I go, well, what are you expecting them to just burst out laughing then? Like, oh no, we were just waiting for your permission to laugh at it. Like, right. Yes, really. They would have laughed if there was something. You know what I mean? They're like, really? Nothing? You guys, no, nothing. What do they say?
Yeah, like the idea of like, the longer you do it, you're never going to have like a full like bomb, just like start to finish, unless you've completely lost them from the beginning. But like, right. So there's always like, it's always good to just take some risks and just add some new stuff, like to work it out for sure.
Yeah. I saw Ralphie May talk one time and he's like, it's funny. The first time you ever did stand-up comedy, you did 6 minutes, you did an entire set of all new material. And he's like, and getting comics to do that again is like almost impossible.
Yeah, that feeling.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah. The first time you were on stage, the least amount of experience, you went out with all new shit. And he's like, why doesn't anyone do that again? You know?
Yeah.
People just be like, yeah, this is all new shit. I'm sure there's comics that do it, but I definitely resonate with what he's saying in terms of like, yeah, it's scary to go out and be like, I'll just risk doing poorly. And then there's my next question was how long before you started getting paid? But before we go into that, that's the element of it, right? Is that like, I guess once you start making money, you know, and if you have a family and responsibilities, like you can't risk fucking up a paid gig by trying something new. And at the end of the flip side of the coin, are you wasting your evenings running out to open mics where you can try new shit, you know, when that night could be better spent, you know, either doing something for, you know, your responsibilities or working a paid gig. That's kind of
yeah, like you can't. Well, that's also the good thing about open mics is like, yeah, you're doing your 6 minutes brand new, but there's also there's the expectations lower.
Right.
So like if you were just do 6 minutes new on a Saturday night, like that's crazy. Right. But then that also, but
showcasing for the owner, I'm going to do all new stuff.
But then also the longer you do comedy, you're like, are you going to still go out and do all the open mics? You have to kind of keep that work ethic going where that's where you're going to find out if something's funny, really.
Yeah, exactly. I think Jason, one of the good pieces of advice he gave me was like, if you're doing a paid show and you're going to try something new, you sandwich it in between two bits that you know are going to work. You know what I mean? So you can, you know, you get them laughing good to prove you're funny. Then you try the new thing. And it might work, it might not, but then you have something that's tried and true that's going to win them back afterwards. But you know, I got this great anal sex joke I'm going to try on this fucking daytime corporate today.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it on the early show, see how it goes.
Do you remember how long it was before you started getting paid gigs? Or
the first paid gig I remember was someone asked me to do comedy at a Jack and Jill. Like they're getting married.
I see. Stag and Doe, whatever.
Stag and Doe,
yeah. Jack and Jill. Yeah.
It was just.
I don't know why I thought it was like a fucking Jack Astor's, a Jack and Jill's. I was like, what the fuck is
Jack
that?
And Jill. Yeah, it's like a Stag and Doe thing. It was this Greek guy. He owned this restaurant in Scarborough. And he's like, you should come do. You're funny. My son thinks you're funny. Come do 15 minutes. And I was doing 15 minutes. And like I'm an amateur comic.
Right. Did you have 15 minutes at the time?
No, I had to stretch everything. So then like I think I did some crowd work, just made fun of like being Greek, whatever. And I think I got $60. And then I took me and a couple of my friends out. We went to a club. I used the money from that to pay for, we weren't going to go to the club.
Right.
Because of the cover. So I used the money I made from the show to pay for the cover. And that ended up meeting like my first girlfriend that night who
really
became my first, we almost got married. So
really?
A fiance, yeah. So that all culminated from stand up. For my first paid gig.
That's awesome. She wasn't your first girlfriend ever, right?
She was my first everything ever.
Oh, wow.
First everything.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah. In hindsight, it sounds good, but like obviously it ended terribly, but
how long were you together?
7 years.
Yeah. Can we talk about this?
You could talk about it. I did a whole one-man show about it, so.
Okay. Well, sometimes you know what's funny? I didn't ask you this, but I don't know if I've ever told my listeners this, but before I ever start a podcast, I always ask like, hey, is there any subjects that are like off limits in case we get close to them and I ask a question that steps into that territory? Right. And I didn't ask you that first. Are there anything that we're not like, I'm not going to ask about shit just for the sake of being personal needlessly, but
I wouldn't even know what until it comes up.
All right. I'm going to hit pause and give you a perfect example. All right, guys, we're going to be right back and you won't even notice the time. All right, gang, I've checked in. Made sure that
we're not allowed to talk about my illegitimate children that are just floating around North America.
That's true. All of those. Seven.
There's seven,
and not a single legitimate one. Everybody's looking for accreditation.
Yeah, no. Other than that, we can talk about.
So yeah, I mean, I do want to circle back to that. But your first gig, $60. How long do you think it was that you were doing stand up before you got that?
It feels, because I did a couple shows sporadically my first year. I feel it was like it might have been like my second year or like going into comedy. I was hired by Yuck, so they were the first club I worked for. So it would have been way after Amateur Night. So that was my first gig. I feel it was like, did they get you that gig? No, I got that on my own.
Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah. And then, of course, did you tell them that you got it? And then they demanded their $15.
$15 or a percentage of my $60. No, this is way before I got signed by X.
I'm actually really fascinated about this club story. So how did you meet your future fiance at a club?
So
and how did $60 stretch between four guys or whatever it is?
I don't know how. Like it was 60. There's three of us.
Okay.
It was just our cover, and so I just was in there. I was going to York University at the time, where I was going to my second year, and I think she's going to her first year. I tell the story on stage, like, it's literally, she's just dancing with these short Asian, and it's just, and I'm like 6'4", and I tell the stories, like I embellish and I say I kicked him out of the way, but like I literally just started dancing with her, like I kind of swooped in and like.
So you just see this chick and you're like, I'm going to go dance with her.
I don't know why. And I've had no girlfriend. Like, I've done nothing. I think I've made out with a chick, little things. And then we just started dancing. And then I didn't have there's no cell phones. I think she wrote her phone number on my hand or something.
Right. And just like that. You didn't ask for nothing. She just writes it down.
Like, I asked for the number, but like, I didn't expect to get it. And we just hit it off. And I'm like, is this how it is? Because it's like, this feels too good to be true. Like, right. I've never gone on like dates like this or like dated anyone. So like, it's the best night. I think it's because of the show. Because when you come off stage, there's a high. Like, your confidence is through the roof.
Right.
Like, had I not done that show, I would never have talked to her. There's positive.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you next. I'm like, where do you get this? Was that you? The guy with no girlfriend just goes into a club and starts dancing with chicks?
Yeah, this is insane, right? So like,
that was what it was the high from the show.
Yeah, and I remember watching the movie Swingers, which is like, you can't call a girl too quickly after. Like, you have to wait a couple days.
Right.
That scene with Vince Vaughn and John Favreau.
Haven't seen it. I know it's a great movie.
It's a great. He's like. So same thing happens to him. Meets a girl. He's like, if you call her too fast and you're too eager, you got to wait. But if you wait too long, then it's going to sound. He's like, why don't I just call her in 3 years from now and ask her if she remembered the time we had I bought a drink for her. So it's a good movie. So yeah, I called her up, and you have to call. Like, so I had to call her up and have a conversation.
Yeah. What's wrong with that?
Well, no one calls. No one.
I call. I hate texting.
Yeah, you're a call guy, right? You like talking on the phone.
You know why? It's because I'm an insecure person, and text is so sterile. There's no tone, cadence, whatever. It gives people also way too long to answer back. So it gives them chances to say no or to really formulate, rather than being authentic and genuine and knee jerk. It's, you can take as long as you want to answer and formulate your thing. So I guess with talking to someone, it's instant. I feel like I can evaluate it better. I get a better understanding of
100%. That's right. That's true. This wasn't a phone call, but the other day, like, I was talking to a booker or something, and something was unsure, and I was like, he might get the wrong idea. So I didn't have his number, but I left a voice memo. I'm like, at the very least, let you hear what I'm saying in that tone, so you'll understand where I'm coming from, right? So yeah. But yeah, so I called her, and then like I was with her for 7 years. Yeah.
Just like that. That's the story. I called her. I was with her for 7 years.
No, we went out. We went on a first date. And
do you remember how long? Did you wait the 3 days to call her?
I waited 3 days. And then I also had an out. So my friend was going to call me on the date and ask me what the weather was like. And then if I told him it's, you know, sunny skies, and that means it's going well. And if it was going bad, he was going to come up with like some sort of excuse to get me out of there. I was really nervous.
Right.
Yeah.
But you went on a date during the day?
It was it was like by the beach is in Toronto. So it was kind of like,
so you're like, oh, it's really overcast, and it was a sunny day.
Yeah.
She's like, what the fuck is wrong with this guy?
I
have to go.
Realized immediately what the hell was going on, but she didn't say anything. So
no. Do you remember just her first name?
Her first name?
Yeah.
Her name is Tova. Was her first name?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Was she Greek too?
No, she's not Greek. She was Polish.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. Sorry, I've never heard that name before. So I was like, if you're like Sarah, I'm like, well, no one's going to know who that is. I'm like, that one narrows it down a little bit. There's three of them in Canada.
There's 3 of them in Canada. Thanks. You know, great human being. She's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then I would imagine you guys were together pretty much through the rise of your comedy career.
Yeah, she was there from the very beginning. She was there when I dropped out of university to stand up.
What were you studying?
At that time, I was studying sociology.
Okay.
Yeah, at York University. Yeah. So I was with her for all her schooling, and I think she did a master's as well at York. And then by that point, I'd dropped out and just was just doing mics and stuff. Really not a good trajectory for a relationship to drop out of university to be a stand-up.
Well, you're still doing it now, so that's a good thing, right?
While you're with your partner who's like, what are you doing?
Well, was she supportive?
She was supportive. My family wasn't.
That was one of my questions too. Like, was your support system supportive?
They thought it was fun, but once it became like, oh, I'm going to do this seriously. So it kind of shook me because like my family is very involved. Like they're Greek. It's just like, it's not one of those things that they're like, you know what? We just want you to do what makes you happy. And just go get, just take life by the horns and have the best. It's like, no,
there's expectations.
You're an idiot. You can't be doing this. You got to get married. You got to get a house. You got to do all that. So I was doing all of that still. So I'd have to work while trying to do this. And you end up ruining everything. It's like my comedy career would have been a lot better if I didn't have to also try and please everyone else in my life. So it's always held me back a bit for myself. But yeah, so it was a stressful relationship too because of all the ups and downs and family stuff. And then, 7 years.
Well, that's a long time. So you were what? You said you were 18 when you started. So
I met her.
You're like what, 25, 26 when you guys called it quits?
Called it quits. Was supposed to get married in 2004, I believe. So yeah, it was 2006. So I was 27.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's a long time, man.
Sold the house. We had a house together.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's nuts.
Well, I would imagine so.
So glad we're talking about it. I'm kidding.
No, but I get it, man. Because
it's a long time. My first girlfriend. I lost my virginity to her. First everything.
Yeah. I was similar to that with my relationship with Crystal, but we were off and on for 15 years. And did you? So tough convo. But was she supportive, or was she one of those people who's like, yeah, do it, but hey, when are you gonna? That's tough, man. That's tough.
Looking back, I would say yes. I think it took me a while to look because obviously you're in a relationship and you start looking back and you're like, oh man, I was with this girl and she was nuts or blah. You start to make excuses, but then I realized I'm the common denominator in all these relationships. Like, I had a responsibility. I think she was supportive to what I wanted to do with comedy, but not supportive of what I was putting it. Like, I wasn't as gung-ho, or I didn't have the plan to get things done. So it's kind of like, oh, I'll support you, but what are you going to do? How does this work? And you're just, you as a comic, sometimes you're just like, man, I just want to get on stage and have fun.
Right.
There's no end goal necessarily that's foreseeable.
Well, even if you work hard, and not to cut you off, but even just recognizing it while you were speaking is talking with 2 comics in the green room last night, whose names I won't mention, who have done almost everything you can do in Canada, going oh, they're done with me. I've done everything. It's there is no, well, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to do this. You don't know when you're going to get a big break. You don't know when you're going to get a festival or a TV deal or whatever it is. So you can't even have a plan in stand-up other than I'm just going to work my ass off at it all the time.
Right.
Until, the right thing comes along. I'm going to chase every opportunity, but you as the comic are never the one who gets to decide I'm going to be at that festival. It's not up to you. The only thing that's up to you is the work thing. So when other people are asking you like, well, what is your plan? The same as if I was working any other job. I'm going to do my best at it. I'm going to work fucking hard at it. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Like I wasn't, and it's also like it's an entrepreneurial thing that's I'm not like, I'm not a businessman. So it's in my head. I'm like, I'm just going to be funny. Like that's in my head. Like there's a system in place through clubs and stuff. When I started, it's different now, obviously, where I was just like, okay, like if I do well, that, you know, things will just kind of pan out to some degree. I'll start getting paid gigs and you'll showcase, you'll get Just for Laughs or you'll get some other festivals. And then like, you know, that can help you make a living. Like you could do decent or whatever. Right. So because I never had that, or because none of that really panned out as I thought it would, it was kind of like, okay, well, if we're going to get married, we're going to have a house. Like I was working at a bank at the time. It's just like, well, what do we do? Like, it's just kind of, it just didn't work out in that regard. But in your head, you're like, oh yeah, if I just be funny, that somehow things will take care of themselves. That's also a Canadian mindset too, right? Like, whereas the States, you really have to be your own person from the very beginning. There's a
lot of sharks in the tank. Here, everything's so spread out that it's like, I mean, you can have an entire career within a 2-hour driving radius in the States because the population's so dense. There's so many fucking clubs. Like, whereas here, you're like when where you're in Toronto, I'm in Ottawa. It's like, I can do Montreal, Toronto, Ottawa, maybe Kingston here and there and some other shit in the area, but it does dry up and you're like, okay, well, I got to go out west. Well, what's that? The entire week's pay for a flight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like, I'll go there when you're starting out and it's like, oh, I can go there and I'll make enough money. I'll break even. Like it won't cost me money. Cause when you're doing it new, you're paying to do stand up. You're paying your gas to drive to Montreal to do a 6-minute set. Like in Ottawa, it's 2 hours away, but when you're new and hungry and you can get on stage once, twice a month, you'll drive to Montreal to do an extra spot. You know what I mean? So you get to that mindset. You're like, oh, well, I could do, you know, a week here and I'll break even. It won't even cost me anything. Now I'm like, fuck, I can sit on my couch for the week and break even. Like I need to generate income.
Yeah. And we're also like, we're north. Like, so there's not a lot of stuff going on. Like it's all the main cities, which is like what, 5?
Yeah.
Across Canada, like across thousands of kilometers.
Yeah.
Whereas if you go, like you pick 2 or 3 states, neighboring states, it's like they all probably have 4 or 5 clubs.
Yeah.
And then, you know, one-nighters and corporates.
Millions of people
Yeah.
that, you know, population that can revolve and hasn't seen you and whatever it is.
And this is not even if you're famous, just like if you're just a road comic, you're like, oh, do I have to go to New Mexico when I live in New York City? No, you probably shouldn't.
Yeah.
Unless you're doing like a big club or something, right? So, but yeah, like so in life, it's hard enough to figure out what you're going to do, but like add comedy and then try and mix those two, it's very difficult.
Well, if someone's asking what's your trajectory, you're like, I don't know. Like you said, it is an entrepreneurship, right? And when you're a comic, there's a quote I love. I heard it from Laurie Grenier, even though she says that it's not her quote. It's entrepreneurs are the only people willing to work 80 hours a week to avoid working 40.
Right. That makes sense.
You know what I mean? Like I'll chase this thing hard to not have to just sit in a fucking cubicle and hate myself.
There's also another thing though, like for me, and everyone's journey is the same. Like I got into comedy. You're looking at like the pinnacle. Like there's like, oh, what do I want to do? It's like, you're thinking Tonight Show. You're thinking maybe SNL. Like you have these dreams when you're young. You're like, what else? I was like, I want to do what that guy's doing. That's great. So, and then when you're doing it, you forget the why you got into it, so that you can easily get jaded and lose perspective of, oh, I just love doing this. And then, but if you're always trying to live up to what you thought it was going to be, this ideal and if it doesn't come, like, then you're like, oh, maybe have I failed? And then for me now, I'm like, oh yeah, I've been doing this for over 20 years. I've met amazing people doing it full time. And like, oh yeah, I've already made it in some regard. If you're always waiting for something to happen, you're never going to be happy. Like those 2 guys, just as one example. But for me, it's just like, oh, I have to be happy now at what I'm doing. Otherwise, it'll never come.
Yeah.
Because even if you're doing really well, like you're being on, you've done all the late show stuff, at some point that's just going to that's going to level off, and then you're going to be like, well, now what?
Yeah.
So if you're always thinking now what, then it's never going to happen.
Well, Nathan McIntosh told me this one time, and he wouldn't name who the comic was, but like Nathan, whose career is incredible. Right. He's done everything. Colbert, Fallon, all this stuff, Conan, like he's done it all. You know, probably could get himself booked at any club in the States. Like great. And great guy, deserves it. Very happy for Nathan. Sure. So he's telling me he's opening for this comic. He wouldn't tell me who it was, But he's like, I'm opening for this guy. He's like, whose career I'm looking at going, fuck, I would love to have his career. Like, right. Even with all of his success. And he said they're sitting in the green room and this fucking commercial comes on for a new movie, right? The trailer for a new movie. Right. And the guy's sitting there going, fuck, I auditioned for that fucking role. I should have got, can you believe they fucking gave it to him? I should have. Nathan's like, wow, you're still not satisfied with what you have. You know what I mean? Like, again, I would look at Nathan's career and go, fuck, I'd love to be there right now. You know what I mean? Right. Like living in New York City, doing all the things like, man, I would love that. Nathan's looking at this guy going like, fuck, I'd love to have his career. That guy's looking at TV. I fucking should have had like, it's like, so he's like, when does it ever become enough? Right. So what you're saying is 100% true, is to be like, I'm happy with what I have. Like I've spent the last week sitting around a condo during the day. I mean, I'm doing work, but I'm not like, oh fuck, I got to go jump into traffic and bust my ass to get to a job I hate,
Right.
It's nice to be able to enjoy what you have. In fact, it's weird. There's always the grass is greener, because I have friends who have exactly what you described, which is, the wife, the kids, the house, the job, right? Like I call it the template of life. Like it's like, oh, just make sure you check these boxes, whatever. And I'm envious of the fact that like they know where their money's coming from. They've got that support system. They've got some, equity. You know what I mean? But and I'm like, in 3 months from now on Tuesday morning at 9 a.m., you know where you're going to be. Whereas I'm like, I haven't got a fucking clue. You know what I mean? I've always got that stress, but they look at my life and like, man, look, you get to travel everywhere, you get to hang out with these people, whatever it is. Like when it comes to life, there's always the grass is greener. You know what I mean? Yeah. Whereas like, I am fortunate, man. When I look back at all the memories I've had in this business, whatever, I'm like, I've met a lot of really cool people. I've the amount of like, no job I've ever had before, do 200 people walk by me and go, man, that was great. Thank you so much. You were great. Like that doesn't happen. It's enjoyable in stand-up. Like, oh, I'm glad I got to be the thing you looked forward to outside of your work. Like you just worked a shitty week. You need to unwind. I'm glad I was a contributor to that part.
Yeah. Like, so last night I had, after the first show, this guy comes up to me. He's like, I saw you here years ago. And I told myself, man, I hope I run into that guy again. And he's just like, I just kept looking at the postings at Absolute, and I saw your name. Like, I think that's the guy. And he's like, I just want to say, man, that was amazing. And I saw you here when you were a lot younger, and I was just like, oh, well, that's really cool. It's just like, that's a memory for that guy. And then, we just take things for granted of like, oh, whatever. It's just another show. And then also like you were saying about Nathan, like someone looks where you are right now and it's like, oh, I would kill to be where they are.
Yeah.
Like I would be killed to just be in this condo doing this podcast on a Sunday morning. Like it's just like, oh, how great would that be?
Yeah.
And then we're like, oh, I want this to happen. I want that to happen. Like, oh no, it's already happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. You forge relationships with people that get you and that understand you more than anyone else does. Right. So like this is
well, that's the thing is, but it's an interesting, fraternity, sorority, whatever we call it, that all of us comics are in, is that we all understand the whole chasing this dream kind of thing. When you were talking about your relationship, I was asking if it was supportive, whatever, because when I think I'd been doing comedy for like 2 years or whatever by the time I kind of got in a relationship with Crystal, and things were not great from the get-go in the sense that like she was going through stuff with her work. And I wasn't working, I was doing stand-up. So I would make some money, but not a shitload. And I don't know how long into the relationship it was, but she would say things like, she's not sure she wants to be in a relationship with a comic, like the instability of income and me being gone for long periods. Like, if you're going to be gone for a while, like, I don't know if I can. So like for myself, that got into my head. It messed with me. I'm not going to say it's her fault. I won't blame. But when you hear somebody that you love and you want to be with say, I don't think I want to be with somebody who does that, it makes it hard for you to want to do a thing that would push away somebody that you care about.
For sure.
So when you were, that's why I asked, was your partner supportive, or did it come to a point where she's like, listen, you got to shit or get off the pot? Like, I guess if I was to ask, like, what ended things? Because you guys had the house, you were together 7 years, you're doing stand up.
I think it was just like it was like I said, it was my first girlfriend. I'm like checking off all the boxes of what I'm supposed to do in life. Mm-hmm. And then I realized I don't think this person's right for me. And then it just kind of slowly deteriorated from there. It's just like, it was just kind of weighing on me. I'm like, I don't think this person and I are going to be married for the rest of our lives.
So you called it off?
I called it off. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I did.
No, hey, there's nothing wrong with that.
I had a one-man show called Disengaged where I talk about calling off 2 weddings.
You've called off 2 weddings?
It's a lot funnier when it's in the show than when it's
of course.
on a podcast.
No,
let me tell you,
the title's hilarious.
It's a really funny situation.
Disengaged.
Disengaged, yeah.
So you had proposed.
I proposed,
and she has a ring on every day, and you're like, you come home one day. How did? It's fascinating to me. It's not a poke.
You have to buy.
How
rings.
did you? You have to buy rings. I thought I heard you say you have to buy wings. I'm like, here's a basket of wings and a beer. I got something to tell you. We're not doing this. Now, how did you disengage?
So things were kind of tumultuous towards the end. Like I had.
Hey Siri, what does tumultuous mean?
Come on.
Oh, I have her on silent so she wouldn't say it. It's here in front of her. She brought it up. Making an uproar or loud, confused noise, applause, excited, confused, or disorderly.
Yeah, like she'd give me the ring back right before we broke it, like a few months before we broke up. Then we got back together.
Really?
I almost had to repropose.
So hold on. Did you disengage? She gave you the ring back, or did she just one day go, "Here's your fucking ring"? Like, did she?
One of those kind of things, right? It was just like, okay, like I'm angry with you. We're fighting. Like we don't know what the future holds. There's confusion. So she gives me the ring back. So then I have to present the ring back again.
Oh.
But this is still the first person. So like, and then I'm like, no, I want to get married. This is going to be good for us. And then as we're getting closer, I'm like, maybe we should take some time, talk about it. And then
did she know when you were going to repropose?
No, I wasn't going to repropose. I just had the ring. I'm like, listen, put this ring on.
Right.
We're gonna get married. This is great. And it wasn't. We were living together at this house. So then we break up, but now I don't get the ring back. I didn't get the ring back for it was over a year later. Like I won't get into the details.
No, of course.
You get a house and all this.
Yeah. There's a lot of procedural shit.
Do you know those commercials of those I'll buy your jewelry type guys?
Yeah.
Oliver?
Yeah.
He's like this. I went to him to sell. No one wants an engagement ring. When you might pay like $5,000 for a ring, and then like to try and resell it at a jeweler, they'll offer you like $800. It's a disaster. There's no.
Yeah, I have to go through it.
The depreciation value of a wedding ring is like astronomical.
Dude, I have an engagement ring in my closet right now that I got at Tiffany's that I'm going to take an absolute bath on.
There's nothing you can do. No one.
There's nothing, and it was so uniquely picked out for her that. It's not even something that I would imagine most women would want. So it's not even like I'll find a buyer who's like, oh, that's exactly what I'm looking for. It's very, it's a heart-shaped cut diamond.
Right.
Because my thing for her was always like my name for her was, oh, you're my heart, whatever it is, right? So giving her a diamond ring that's heart-shaped, and even on the box it has engraved like my heart, like I'm giving you my heart, blah, blah, blah. But and it was stupid expensive because it's from Tiffany's. So like, I haven't even begun to be like, oh, I can't wait to fucking go down that horrific road of like, what am I going to get back for it? Well, okay. Maybe I'll just hang on to it. Maybe it'll have more value as like, I'll get it framed or something, put it on the wall to remind me, be sure or whatever it is. Don't ignore red flags.
Yeah, that's a good. It's just a symbol. It'll just become a symbol.
It would be infinitely worth more to me as a symbol on my wall than a grand back in my fucking bank account.
So here's the problem, because my friends are like, why don't you just keep it and give it to the next girl, or like see if someone will buy it, because they will put it in the jeweler will say, listen, I'll put it on display for like until and see if someone wants it. But that's like buying a house where you just found out 5 people were murdered inside. You're like, you don't want to live in that house. Like it has death and shame written all over it. Like no one else wants the ring you gave to someone from your heart. No one's just like, can I be heart part 2? I'll take that. Yeah.
Now it's never been worn because we never got to the presentation of the ring.
But so then you have to then you can never explain the story behind that ring. That's the tricky part.
Right.
You're like, how'd you pick this up? Well, no, you can't.
No, you can't. You can't give it.
You have to lie and say
the ring has to belong to the owner, and that's everything. You can't. It's. There's almost that whole like male thing of like, oh, you're not a virgin too. Like you gave that to somebody else, and I got the fucking. I'm supposed to act like this is the virginity for me, but yeah, it's. But at the end of the day, like that's what I'm saying. When you're like, you gave the ring.
Yeah.
And then you took a bath on it, I'm sure.
Bath on it, yeah.
And then you had a second ring for someone else, took a bath on that one.
Took a bath, and I bought a pair of boots, leather boots with the proceeds from that, just to make myself feel better.
Fuck.
Took a huge bath on the second one, yeah, for sure.
That's brutal.
Yeah.
That's brutal, man. I'm sorry to hear. So when you guys broke up, how did the break, like you were the one who called it quits? You're like, maybe we should see things, take some time. And then what happened? You just sat her down one day? Did it just blurt out when you weren't expecting it? Or were you like, I'm ready?
I was like, okay, so listen, I was at the house. I was like, listen, let's just take a few weeks to gather ourselves. And then we met by this lake. Like they had like a
oh, wow.
Not a big lake. It was like a community lake. It was like this park. I think we had been on a date there or something, or we just knew where it was. It's somewhere outside.
I'm just, as soon as you told me that, I'm like, that feels ominous. Like if I was her, I'd be like, he wants to meet in public in front of witnesses.
I'm driving there. She drives there with her best friend who's there for moral support.
Clearly.
And then we
so
go
she
for a
knows.
walk, and then like we just both started bawling. Like I just couldn't stop crying. I was just like, it was terrible. We just both knew right away, this is a meeting to say, like, we're not getting married. She was already, by that time, she'd had 3 weeks with friends and family telling her, like,
it's over.
Because she wouldn't have told them all the stories of why this relationship is not healthy until it's on the table. And they have to be like, oh, yeah, I was so stupid. What was I thinking? And then, so by that time, she had the confidence to be like, okay, I think this is over. And so we were just like, there was just us crying about it and stuff. And then it just slowly, it just deteriorated into two people that had to try and sell a house after they're not together anymore. So
right. Did you still live? I guess did you live together at that point? What?
Yeah. So it was just became like a divorce where you're just like, there's a lot of anger and bitterness and like everything's tough to do. And then, but ironically, I think we made contact many years later. Like, so like, I think she's great. She's married. She's got kids, but we don't talk, whatever. But like, it's funny, not till years later that I was just like, oh yeah, like, any animosity there was, that's because you're just so emotionally charged when you're in a relationship. It's like everything's like a 1,000 times what it is, right? And
yeah.
So you're not just two humans. You're just like, you're my ex, I'm your ex. And then
right. Yeah. Well, a couple nights ago, you'd tied a few on, and just like, you know, we'd be talking about something completely different. Then you'd look at me, you got to get out of there. You got to get out of there. You can't just be there. It's you got to get your space. You got to get out of that.
Yeah.
So I'm like, this is clearly like you've been in the situation where you're living with the person, and there is still a lot of bitterness and stuff with myself at the moment. I live with the person.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And it's tough. I don't take opportunities to publicly slag her or anything like that. Like, I think she's a great person. She's kind to everybody, just not me.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like she's just not the kind of person who can team up. She's a solo act. You know what I mean? And any attempt to, you know, even though everybody wants a partner, some people are just like, when they're not willing to be a partner. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, you got to give them everything that they want, but they're not really aware of what they're not returning. So it's tough. So for my bitterness, it would be like, I would even be happy to sit and listen to her tell me everything that she wasn't happy with about the relationship, which I've done many times. It's just, if it's my turn to say something, the yelling, the cutting off, it's like, so you're not really here to, you know, here am I. It's you were the victim and only, it's like a Trump. You know what I mean? You're the best. And if you're wronged, you're the only one who's ever been wronged. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's the whole world's against me. They rigged my election. That stole it. Fake news. But nobody knows more about women than me. Nobody cares more. No one knows better about brain surgery than me. Like, it's just kind of, you know, at one point you're like, you know, there's a word for that. And it's a word that gets tossed around a lot incorrectly, but I won't say it.
You can't diagnose someone.
Yeah. It's a different N word, but
yeah. But the thing though too is like what I found as I got older is just like, oh, like the guy that got into that relationship should never got into that relationship.
Sure.
So there's a bit of a two-way street. Then I'm like, oh yeah, why am I attracted to the type of person where my relationships are working out? Not to say that anyone's perfect for anyone, right?
Of course.
But there is sometimes you get into relationships at the wrong time, or when you're young and you're immature and you don't realize what you're looking for. So for me, I had to do like a lot of introspection and just realize, oh yeah, what are my faults, or what are my shortcomings, or who's a better match for me that is someone that's more inclined to be supportive of this type of career and vice versa. Whereas someone that might be like, oh yeah, this person was never going to be on board this train.
Right.
Yeah. But it's hard. You can't find out, right? Because there's emotions going, you're excited. It's a new person. It doesn't really come out till later on.
Well, that's the thing, right? Is that new person, everyone that to call the honeymoon phase and all that shit. It's the drug. It's the escape. It's the distraction from your life. So all your own personal problems, it's like, oh, this new and shiny thing. Just like when you eat, when you shop, when you do drugs, when you drink, it's a distraction. But the thing is, the longer you're with them, you're like, okay, well, the distraction part is over and I'm still me.
Right.
And this person has learned me now. You know what I mean? Like can only distract for so long, So to me, that's what the honeymoon phase is. It's the whole like, oh, we're not really diving deep into each other yet. We're just enjoying the small talk, the laughs, the outdoing things. And then it's like, okay, now reality's back. Yeah. And so for myself, it's a lot of just, hey, like now I recognize for years, I thought, every time we would break up, I would listen to the list of things that I had done. Right. I always did this, that, whatever. And again, because I loved her and I didn't want it to end, I'd be like, okay, I'm going to take that list and I'm going to look at it and I'm going to be like, okay, are these fair criticisms? But over time, I would be banging my head against the wall. I'm like, I didn't do that. I wasn't these things. You know what I mean? And it sucks that someone you love views you that way, whatever. But this last time, like I had a lot of information even before it happened. So I wasn't like, this is the nice thing is about this on and off again relationship. Like it's over.
Right.
You know what I mean? I was pretty sure it was over last time, but I was still like, okay, the things that I'm willing now having the psychology background and understanding what's going on in the dynamic. This time I'm not as devastated. I'm disappointed. I'm sad. Like I said, I bought a ring. Like things were good for a very long time. I'm like, it's the healthiest our relationship's ever been. Maybe we're ready to move forward. And then it just, once we moved in together, it took a giant step backwards and I'll be okay. But there's a part of me, it's like, that's 15 years of my life. And as a fat 40-year-old, there's not too much of it left. So I'm like, I'm hoping, I think that really I'm at a point in my life where I'm like, you know what? It is important to be happy with who you are and not look for that in someone else. Everyone else is looking for somebody else to make them happy.
Yeah. And we also don't want to be discouraged from like, if something comes up again to be like, oh, I know how this is going to turn out. Or
yeah. You can't be looking for, what do they say? Your eyes aren't just receptors. They're also projectors. So if you feel like, oh, that's an indication of whatever, like you're going to see the world with whatever lens you're trying to see it with. So if you're trying to tell yourself that every relationship's going to be bad or whatever, like you'll just sabotage.
You'll find a way to make it bad.
Yeah. Exactly. Self-fulfilling prophecies or whatever.
Exactly.
But, well, that's, thanks for bringing everything down. No, I'm kidding. So you were doing stand-up through all of this. Some of the things I hear, like, were there any milestones or any moments that you had in your career that were just like super celebratory or like road signs to be like, keep going? You know what I mean? Like, cause we all have the ups and downs. Was there anything that happened that any milestones you were particularly proud of? Any moments of just like, this was what made me say like, yeah, I gotta keep doing this.
I don't like, I've had breaks in comedy where I'm like, maybe I shouldn't be doing this or just doing it differently.
That is the next question, was the negative, right? We shine the light and then the shadows on the second one.
So like big moments, I mean, I guess like getting a visa, being able to work in the States was kind of like, oh, okay, like, I'm doing decent enough that like I can work down there or doing well in shows in like New York City or LA. I'm like, oh yeah, I can hang here. Like I'm not.
Do you still have that?
What's that?
Do you still have that visa?
Do I still have the visa? Yeah, I have a visa. Yeah. Yeah. I still, we'll probably talk about this next because I haven't been in school, so I haven't been able to do, so yeah.
Yeah. No, please, of course.
I've taken some detours. So that's kind of good. Like Winnipeg Comedy Festival, that was my first kind of being on TV. It's like this Canadian festival, which is like, for me, I was just like, oh, that's awesome. Like I'm with like some really good comics. I think, you know what? I have a lot of funny friends, and the fact that I can make them laugh and they make me like my milestones are different now when I was, because my theory is like you're never going to get bitter as long as you're writing your material and you have gratitude and stuff like that. So I'll never get to a point like, oh, am I funny or am I even good at this? I know I'm good at it.
Yeah,
because I can make some of the funniest people in this country laugh, and I'm like, oh, that means more to me than the audience. It's just like if if I can make that guy laugh, like, yeah, that's
Yeah.
we're making each other laugh. It's like we're already good at comedy, so
Right.
they're the toughest crowd because no one makes me laugh if they're not a comic. Like if I have a conversation with someone, they're trying to be funny, like I'll just stare at them blankly. Like, have you ever been?
They're like, you're a snob. I'm like, no, you're just not funny.
Yeah, have you ever been at a table with comics and someone either new or a non-comic, a civilian, sits down, and I'm like, this is not the table for you, because this table is just going to be laughs or stories, or it's either going to be poignant conversations that are relative to our lives.
Right.
It's a very inner circle. So if like you have to bring something to the table, and if you're coming in with hack jokes to make comics laughs, it's like,
if you're coming here for your own validation,
yeah,
which is what a lot of them do. They want to come to the table and, I'm going to try to make this is not fucking American Idol, buddy. You're not going to sit down and we're going to let you know, like,
oh, I've told people to leave. You can't sit here. Like,
you've said that? You don't seem like that guy. You're such a sweetheart.
No, not
crush some words. Fucking kid.
Well, was it?
I watched you throw a homeless man's chocolate away the other night.
Yeah. Well, listen.
That's way out of context the way I said that, guys. Way out of context. I'll talk about that on the podcast this week. Don't you worry.
Yeah, don't worry. I did not just rip out of his hand. No, but like my friend's done that. Was just like he's like, hey man, I don't think you should be sitting here. I've done it in like more subtle ways. Like if we're going to like somewhere else, I'm just like, oh, we're just gonna go. Like it's just. I've done it in a nice way, but like I have seen it. Like,
you haven't looked at someone in the eye and go, hey, can't sit here. Seat's taken.
No, if they're a comic, I would never say that to a young comic, because like I would never shoot their dream. No, because I was that guy. So like, I would try and sit down at a table. It's just like but I would sit down and listen. I wouldn't sit down and just try and crack jokes, because who cares? We're not always doing that. We're just always, like this. We're just talking about stuff that's two guys almost never talk about relationships in regular day-to-day life. It's like we're already in the dark of comedy, of the arts, so it's easier for us to go down these roads. That's where we live. We live in the dark road. How do I make this dark road funny so that it's less dark for this moment? Oh well,
we can buy some glow sticks at the dollar store. Yeah. Throw them in the corners. That's interesting. So your milestones, I guess, the things that made you keep going is just being able to make funny people laugh.
I don't really have like milestones. I never really thought of it.
Well, the Winnipeg one's a good one. Like, I mean, it's not everybody has necessarily even an answer for that. It's just sometimes people have like this moment where they were like, I was going through this, I was going to stop, and then I had that. Like Morgan Freeman tells these stories about how like he was 55 before he got his first movie. He was about to quit trying to act, and then he got a movie. And then he would audition, nothing. And right before he was about to quit, he'd fucking get another. Like, it was literally just every time he was about to quit, he would get something else to make him keep going. To the point where it was like, it's fucking Morgan Freeman, let's give him work. You know what I mean? But in the early shit, it was like nothing. So some people have it, some people don't. But it's a good example of like, essentially you answered the question, which is like, what are the things in this industry that make you want to keep going? And for you, it's like knowing that I can make other funny people laugh. It's like a chef being able to say, Chef Ramsay and Jamie Oliver were like, this is a great dish. Like, great. The people who know how to do it the best, consume it and enjoy it, versus people in the crowd whose idea of a good joke is some hack fucking thing they heard at their office or got on an email chain. Like, my mom, love her to death. I do. And my mom is funny for a civilian. She's got an upbeat personality at work and everything like that. Mm-hmm. But she's not, doesn't make me laugh. You know what I mean? She's like, oh, you're just a snob. You just don't want me to, you just don't want to say I'm funny. And I'm like, you're just not funny at this level. Hey, look, your fucking buffalo cheese dip was delicious at a barbecue. But if you put that on a 5-star Michelin restaurant, it's not gonna turn any fucking heads. You know what I mean? Like, it's fine for, mid-range. But if you're coming to the people that do it for a living and you want validation, then you got to fucking bring it. You know what I mean? Don't get mad at them for telling you something you didn't want to hear. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I think the idea of make it is like, for me, it's not like a milestone in that regard of like, how will I know that I make it? Like, I don't have that. Like, a lot of people like Morgan Freeman, you're saying, or like Matt Rife talks about that story. It was like, I was doing this for 11 years and was like, I'm going to quit. And in my head, I'm like, I can't quit if I wanted to. I've tried. I can't. Like, that stupid stage sucks me back in.
Right.
Even when I'm like, oh, I just don't want to do something. I don't want to do this anymore. I can't say that. it's just in my blood now. I can't not go on stage and do stand up. So it always pulls me back in to some degree. Like it's just who I am now. It's a part of my it's a part of my identity. It doesn't define me, but it's just like, oh, this is something like if you play an instrument, you're not just like, oh, I don't do that anymore. I put the guitar away. You don't play the guitar at all, even for yourself. So it's like, for us, we just are, there is no for ourselves. We have to go on stage in front of people. Like there's no other way to do it. So.
Or just even make people laugh. Like I have thought about quitting, but my brain is like, what else are you going to do? I was an electrician when I was young. I worked in sales. I worked in kitchens. I did door-to-door stuff. Like I've done so many, I worked in hospitality and hotels. Like I've worked so many fucking jobs. So I can do lots of things. The only common denominator at all these jobs is that I was fucking cracking jokes with my colleagues and making them laugh and everything like that. Like I have been the funny person my whole life. So it's like I could go and I know I could do something else, but it's not going to make me happy. Like the best thing that I have. And first off, I've rewired people's entire homes and things like that and ran into them 2-3 years later and they didn't recognize me. I was in their home every day for a month. And they didn't recognize me. Whereas people saw me 5-6 years ago. Someone saw me during the pandemic with a mask on at a Harvey's. And they're like, hey, I saw you at Absolute Comedy. I'm like, my face is covered. Do you know what I mean? And it's been 2 years since that club has been open. So 2 years later, you just recognized my voice. And they were like, yeah, you're really fun. That didn't ever, hey, you wired my house. Hey, you sold me my TV. That's never happened. But people will recognize you for stand up because like that just meant more. Do you know what I mean?
I do. Yeah.
So like I'm with you, man, in the sense that it's part of who I am, because even when I'm not on stage, I'm still just trying to be funny. You know what I mean? I'm still just trying to make people laugh. Like we're having a shitty day at work. I'll crack a couple jokes. And now you're laughing at least. You know what I mean? So I don't know. What about the negatives?
Well, the negatives is just like so funny story. I was going to walk away from comedy, and then I remember because I had to call Jason and cancel. I canceled all my shows. I was like,
really?
I was like, listen, I need to step away, because there is one thing. Like I've been doing this for over 20 years. It wasn't like why haven't I made it? It's just like, oh, I've been doing one thing for 20 years. So all the year, and I started when I was 18. So what do I know about what I want, what I like? Is there anything else I want to try? So, and I did not have an answer for that. I just knew I needed to kind of step away, recharge. So I had to call clubs and say, hey, I'm canceling my headline weeks. So I called up Jason and I was like, hey, Jay, can I talk to you for me? He's like, ah, fuck. Well, I'll call you. We got to pull over. Jesus. It's like, God damn it. What's wrong? And I'm like, listen, I just got to take some time away from comedy. He's like, what do you get an addict? I'll make sure no one gives you booze at the club. He's like, you're canceling. And I gave enough time. Like it wasn't like, it's not like,
it wasn't the week before.
No. It was like months and months away. Right. But I just remember that's the only person I had to talk to in person to say like, which was a decision like, oh, I'm not. So then I literally make that phone call, and like 2 weeks later, the pandemic starts. So I had already had the mindset of like, I'm going to be on my own and not worry and just try and figure some shit out. So nothing like, I wasn't shocked by the pandemic. It didn't shock me to like, now what? It's just like, I was already in this mindset of like, oh, like
I need to take a break.
Things are already stopping. Like, so I don't have to worry. I didn't have that shock of like, oh shit, I just lost all my gigs.
You also won't have the guilt of like, why did I do that to myself or whatever, when you're like, not out of my hands.
But I did have to cancel everything. And then during that period, so like I wasn't doing Zoom comedy or anything. I was just like, I got a job and I decided to take one course, some community college course, to see if I could finish the degree. Cause I always wanted to finish school, because I felt like comedy I didn't have to drop out to be a stand-up comic. Like I could have still done both.
Right.
But I made up that idea in my head. I'm like, no, you gotta. So I just slowly for the next couple of years just picked up some courses here and there, and then eventually everything opened, and then I just somehow I'm like 6 months away, a few months away from finishing a degree. So for me, it's kind of like, oh, like comedy's still here, and now I have this extra bit of knowledge or whatever of going back to school. So I'm happy about that. But like there was a time there during the pandemic. I'm like, what am I doing? Like, why am I was literally a housekeeper at a hospital for like 6 months. literally no one wanted these jobs because it's like no one's going to go into the hospital during the pandemic.
Right. Was it a good gig?
It wasn't a good gig. It was a solid gig. But
I mean, good as in like the pay was good. It wasn't too hard. Not like, oh man, I can't wait to do this the rest of my life. But.
No, it was the most challenging, like most stressful thing ever. It's just
Really?
literally working in a hospital. Like, first of all, I've been doing comedy for years, so now I got to go back and recalibrate to having a job, and you're just like, you're at the lowest rung within the hospital. So like,
what were you, a porter or orderly?
No,
or
porter is eventually what I got a job as a porter, which is actually people. If you're working in the hospital, everyone treats you well in the hospital. They all very supportive.
Really?
Hospital people don't judge other people in the hospital. It's the ones I worked at.
Okay. This was also something we haven't talked about yet, but this is in Vancouver, I take it?
This is in Vancouver.
Right. So at some point, guys, he moved to Vancouver, just so you know.
To Vancouver,
we've jumped ahead, but no, I'm kidding. No, it's fun. That's how it goes.
After engagement 2, ended up.
Well, that's one of my questions. We can totally go with that. But you're in the hospital. Everybody treats everybody good.
Yeah. So, but I was before I was literally like a housekeeper. I was collecting trash and like throwing trash. I was just like,
what was the title? That sounds like a janitor, not a housekeeper.
Well, it's called housekeeping. Housekeeping is responsible for all the housekeeping in the hospital. So
but you weren't changing bed linens
I've
and
done
stuff
that
like
too.
Oh, okay.
Dude. I did everything.
Okay.
Yeah, it's nuts. It's like, and then every day at 7:00, people, the ambulances would drive by, honking their horns and flashing lights, and we'd all have to stand outside and wave at the fan. People would come to the hospital with their masks on. I was like, oh. Supporting the hospital.
That's so stupid. You have to stop working so you can go out and receive praise.
I didn't mind stop working, but yeah, you're like, okay, take it easy, guys. Like,
yeah.
And that soon petered out.
It's like, thanks for not staying home to come out and support us.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. So then you're doing that, and every day I'm like, what is this going to be? What's the end of this? Like, you're not in school fully. You're just taking courses. You're not doing any comedy. No one is, but you're not doing Zooms. You're not making sketches.
Did you ever end up doing any of it? The online shit? I didn't do a single one.
No.
It seemed horrible. And then the more and more comics I respected, I saw doing it. I'm like, fuck, this is going to be another one of those I missed the boat things.
Yeah,
but I never did a single one the entire pandemic. It seemed like a nightmare to me.
Yeah. No, I just never wanted to. I wasn't thinking about comedy. I wasn't on socials at all. Like, I was just like, no, there's this has meaning to it. You're here for a reason. So like, just get up every day, go to work. And, I was still writing. I was still writing a lot. And then just going on this own journey. I was like, might as well just do it now. And so I'm happy for it. And then eventually got back into stand-up. That was rough. That was like starting over again because just your timing is off. Mm-hmm. But so that was about a year after everything opened. So, but I don't know. Like, that's the thing with comedy. It's just like nothing really changes. Like, if you can still write, and you're not going to get less funny if you're still writing and being true to yourself. So I was like, yeah, I'll just take this detour, and I'm still on the detour.
Still, you think?
Well, I mean, I still have like 6 months left of school, or like 1 semester.
Right,
left of school.
right. Okay. If school's the detour,
yeah. School's detour. You can't really.
I thought you meant the break from comedy. I'm like,
no.
I'm like, that explains this week on stage. I'm like, okay, he's on a break. That's why.
What does that mean? That I bombed?
Well, it was a small joke. Like, that's not as funny if I have to explain it. But you didn't bomb, though. You didn't. It's just a stupid little jab, good-natured ribbing. You're like, wait a minute, what? What was your best moment in stand-up? Would you say the Winnipeg Festival so far has been one of
my best moments? No, my best moment is a road trip I took with Comedy Records to go out east with Monty Scott and Nick Reynolds, just friends of mine.
Yeah.
That was like... when you're a kid, and you have a sleepover and you're with your friends, you're playing video games. Like, this is the best day ever.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, and then you have to go home the next day. That that road trip was just it was our first college gig. It was like I'd never been to, I don't think I had been to I had it once, but to do colleges in the East Coast, it was fun. So for me, it's moments. It's really not like, it's more stuff like that. They're like, just having fun. It was just like, so that for me was probably one of my best, I'd say, comedy moments.
Was just being able to do that tour?
That road trip, yeah. That tour.
Good group of guys, too.
Yeah. Funny guys.
Nah, Nick's already done an episode of it. So Nick's episode is there, guys, if you want to hear it. I think he talked about that trip, too.
Oh, yeah, it was nuts.
Yeah. Were you guys sitting on a park bench and there was a bunch of deer or something that came and got up in your face or whatever?
I don't know.
Could have been a different one. He might have been doing one with K-Trev at that point. Worst comedy moment.
Oh, it was doing a show for Yuck Yucks. So I think with Bob Keel. Is it Bob Keel? Yeah. And
he's dead, eh? Did you know?
He is dead.
Yeah. He won the lottery and then died.
He won the lottery?
He won some small lottery in Kingston or whatever and then died.
No, he was alive, and he was an angry man.
He was alive in this story. It wasn't a weekend at Bob Keel's.
So this is after I was my first engagement didn't work out, and there was like times where I just couldn't get on stage. Like it was just kind of it was like a little rough spot there. So I'm kind of like raw. I don't have my timing down. I'm doing a middle set, and it's at this like hotel casino banquet hall where they're watching Will Ferrell's Ice Capades movie over a buffet.
Oh,
dinner.
Blades of Glory.
So we played after. So they're eating, watching this hour and a half movie, and then there's stand up. It's the worst setup. So I go
dinner and a movie.
I go up there, just eat it. I'm supposed to do 20 minutes. After 12, I'm bombing horribly. And then as I walk off stage, my foot catches all the cables, and I rip out the amp, and only just. And then I just saunter to the back, and this he's like, man, that's not bad for your first time. I was just like, well,
this is what Bob Keel says?
No, this is what just a guy said.
Oh.
I'm like, well, yes, not my first time. It was like that was my worst because like it's right on the tip of my tongue. I always know worst moment was that moment.
Really? That's not one of the worst I've heard.
I'm sure there's worse ones.
Oh, hell yeah.
I'm sure if I could
But it was
think
just
of something-
bombing at a corporate.
It was just pulling that cable out. It was just.
Oh, that
the
was like
worst.
insult to injury. It was just, they just put an exclamation point on what they just saw.
Yeah.
Fuck this fucking boom. Yeah.
I will say the worst moment.
It doesn't have to necessarily be like a stage show too. It could be like getting a phone call about a gig or something that happened as a result of stand up or something like just.
No, I have another moment. The one that I regret. It's like I was supposed to do a spot at the Rivoli, and I hadn't been writing much, and I was like, shit, I was just there, and like I don't want to do the same set, and it pains me. It was just 2005, I think, and I just like I was like, I'll just cancel it. I'll just blow it off, and then. I remember she's like the producer. She's like, "Oh man, you picked a really."
Is that when Zoe was producing?
Yeah, she's like, "You really picked a weird show to not show up to." So Lewis Black and Robin Williams showed up to that show, and they both did time. And like Robin Williams is my absolute favorite person, like in total. Like, so I was like, shit, I could have met Robin Williams. Like I would have hugged him or something. And then, because I remember when he passed, I was actually sad. Like, this is one of the most saddest moments I've had for someone that's not family.
Right, of course.
It was that guy.
But a hero.
Yeah, 2014 is when I think he passed. Yeah, so that was terrible.
That's almost 10 years now, almost.
Yeah, almost 10 years. So that was kind of a worst moment for me because it's something I do think about. Yeah.
And there's another perfect example of somebody who has no argument, huge success in the industry. Robin Williams, right? But then depressed enough to hang himself.
I don't even know how that happened. I don't know if it's a disease or what. If he actually hung himself.
That's what they said. They found him hung himself in his closet. Well, suicide of some kind. But it's just like people quote him all the time. And it's like, when you make other people laugh because you feel shitty, it makes you feel better. By making other people feel better, you feel better, whatever. Blah blah blah. But again, another guy who clearly wasn't. He was on top of the world in terms of success, but. That's not everything. You know what I mean? Having money, having fame, all that shit's not everything.
Right.
That's why it's important to be grateful for what you have currently. Mm-hmm. Be like, everything's okay right now.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm not in one of those countries where they're, going to shoot me today or sell me into sex trafficking or something like that.
Is that a word for us? We're just going to be sold into sex trafficking?
Not for me. I don't fit in an oil drum, but
yeah, I don't think full-grown men that are 6 feet tall like are going to get thrown into.
Well, no, but I'm like they can shoot. We get shot at. I don't know. We're not in danger of not
good.
making
We're
it till
safe.
the end of the
We're
day.
safe.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
Of course.
I mean, with me and my heart conditions, you never know. Every day, every beat could be its last, but. But I just mean that like we don't have it that bad, If you live in North America, you're already in like the top 5% of the world.
Well, it's so easy to just compare yourself to other people. It's just like, why would you ever want to do that? Like, there's literally nothing you can do about that.
Yeah,
Zero.
And even the people like, well, I never get the quote right, but I believe it's comparison is the death of joy. I said that they're thief of joy because. Even the best people in the world who are rich or whatever, they'll still find someone who did it faster, better, younger. You know what I mean? Like if you start comparing yourself to other people, immediately you just start seeing, oh, I could have, I'm not as good as this one. It's like, you'll just never be happy.
But you can't, if your goal in life, my goal in life is just to keep growing as a person. So, and I used to be like resentful of my past self. And when I was like, I would beat myself up. Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Yeah. But now, like, the more growth I've gone through, it's just like, oh, I didn't have a choice. I would never have been different than what I was. If I could have been, I would have been. It's just like,
right.
So there's no point in looking back because it's like that already happened. Like I wasn't going to do things differently based on his circumstances.
And all of those things led you to who you are now. Because you take out any of those experiences or choices or and you're not who you are now. Which is why the other quote I like is you don't have to be better than anybody else. Just have to be better than you were. You know what I mean? So as long as you're continuously growing, it doesn't really matter if you're better than others or doing more, whatever. Just as long as you know that every day you're doing better than the day before, then you're already on a good trajectory. You know what I mean?
And better doesn't have to be like financially, but like it doesn't have to be like you just have to be an improvement on like who you are. Just to know yourself more, I think, is even more. Yeah, just like that. I think that's what growth is. Self-aware,
accountable. Yeah, all those things.
Yeah, and I think too, like I look back, like I didn't have a lot of mentors either. Like a lot of people just kind of luck in, and you find the right people along the way that can kind of like steer you in certain directions. Mm-hmm. I've been steered in the wrong directions a lot of the times growing up, so I can't be that hard on myself because if you're impressionable and you're young, like things aren't always going to go as you want them to.
Of course,
yeah,
of course.
No point. You could live in regret and resentment forever, and then that'll just tear you apart.
I have family members. I know a lot of people that just their whole every day is just up, anger, resentment. It's everybody else. And it sucks to look at because I'm like, fuck, I never want to be that. The worst is like Anthony Robbins talks about he whenever he has like a decision to make, he says he does his rocking chair test, which is where he's, if I'm sitting in my rocking chair at 80 years old and looking back at this moment, is this a moment that I would have wanted to do, X or Y or whatever it is? But like for me, I think about those people who just live their lives angrily all the time, just always angry. And I'm like, fuck, I would hate to be laying in a palliative care hospital bed realizing like, oh, I was the angry fuck. Like I could have made a change. Like imagine fucking figuring that out so late in life where it's not going to make a huge fucking difference, Right. You're going to have to fucking remember your Facebook password so you can jump on there and reach out to everybody and make amends like My Name is Earl, but like the senior citizen version of it. That'd be actually a great fucking movie. Some 80-year-old who decides I was a crotchety cunt my entire life, and I'm going to spend my last 3.5 weeks alive trying to make amends with like a bucket list, but it's just people you have to apologize. Like, I was a horrible person to you.
But he dies before he starts. And it's like, oh, fuck.
Buys the plane ticket.
No one will know.
That's so fucking funny. That would be a great movie. The whole movie, you're just watching them plan. They're booking everything. Like they got that plane tickets. They end up leaving their family so much less because they spent all this money on travel. They're like, he was a fucking prick right till the moment he died. He even blew all of his money so we'd have nothing.
He didn't even make it to the reunion where he was going to apologize to everybody. Yeah.
Had this big speech, bought a big fancy suit for it. That would be hilarious to just watch all of the attempt at making it right and then it just...
No payoff.
They're like, yeah, we didn't even inherit anything. He sold his house for this big thing he was going to do. Nothing happened.
What a piece of shit. What a loser.
I just don't ever want to be that person. I don't want to be that person who realizes way too late that there was shit you could change, work on, take accountability for, whatever.
Which is also interesting because it's like, which also suggests that we're never going to get to a level where we're perfect anyway. So there's always going to be something that you're like, I wish, but it's just like, just being honest with yourself, and just being accountable, like to know that, of course you're still gonna fuck up a bunch.
Yeah. I have like a plethora of quotes because they just put shit together succinctly. But perfect is the enemy of good. You know what I mean? Like the more you try to make something perfect, it won't even end up being. Because you just keep nitpicking it, and just so trying to make it perfect prevents it from even being good. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So just in like you said, we're hanging out in a condo, shooting the shit on a Sunday. What could be better? What could be better?
Oh, nothing. Yeah,
we get to go tell dick jokes tonight.
Right.
We get paid, and you get paid tonight. Tonight's a good chance. Then the week, good payday. So I've only got a couple questions left. One is, since we're talking about being given bad advice or whatever, and different advice, what advice would you give to a comic? Well, someone looking to get into comedy. So if someone's trying to get into comedy, what advice would you give them? Besides don't, because everyone's like, yeah, don't.
Don't.
Don't do it.
Advice, I don't really know if I could, because like obviously, no, not obviously, I'm just trying to think career trajectory, because everyone's is so different. So I wouldn't have any advice on like, oh, you should do this or do that. But I would say is not try to evaluate yourself too quickly. It's like do a lot of sets before you even ask anyone for advice about your act. Because I find a lot of young comics will say, hey, can you watch me and tell me this? It's just like, it won't serve you well at all. Like just get on there as much as possible for at least a year. And then like, by then you'll probably have a better idea. Just like be honest yourself, like trust what makes you laugh. Cause I found for me, I was always trying to please everyone. And so a lot of the darker stuff that I gravitate towards when I'm alone, I'm like, I wouldn't tell. And then it's just like, cause like, what if this person's watching? Or now it's just like, oh, what does it matter? I can't make everyone laugh at all. So it's like, I won't be happy if everyone is laughing for the wrong reason. I'd rather just like be true to the joke and then let that take care of itself.
Right. Like
I love Lauren McDonald. He's like one of my favorite comics. Whereas it's like that guy's constantly in an uncomfortable position, like makes people uncomfortable. It's just like, but for me, that took years of confidence to be like, and trial and error to be like, no, man, just say the joke. You know, it's funny. Like, don't worry if it offends anyone. But I was always trying to toe that line when I was younger of like, oh, what if I got to do corporate? What if I got to do this? And then you end up, it's not as funny as you can be.
Right.
Yeah. So that would be advice I would give. And don't quit your day job right away either. Like don't quit everything because like you're not going to get paid right away. So like,
right.
Like some guys will just quit and they're like, I'm doing this full time. I'm like, okay, well, do you know what that means? It's like, you're going to plan these road trips, then you're going to lose money on them. It's just like, if you don't have to, because obviously you're like, fuck, I don't need to work. I'll just be a comic. It's like, well, hold on a second.
In Toronto.
Yeah. Because
the most expensive city.
Let's say you do that and then you go to LA or New York, if you have ambition to go there, 100% you're going to have to get a job there because you can't move to New York City and leave New York City. You have to stay there. So there's no income as a comic in New York right away. So you're going to have to work anyways. So it's just like, put stuff in perspective. It's just like, because you're going to maybe have the job to save money so that you can do other things like, buy cameras or travel. So just kind of, you don't need to quit too quickly. Just take that money and reinvest it in yourself in whatever way you think you need to.
Do you record your sets? I don't record my sets at all.
I record them. I haven't video recorded them. I just I record the audio if I picked up something I should.
I've done that too, where I'll just grab it and put. Have you been recording your shows this week?
Audio, but yeah, I haven't recorded any video. Which is another thing is like don't do what I do, which is you should record your sets. Video.
I can't watch myself. That's the thing is I've even recorded at times, and I'm like, I'm not gonna. What am I sit down and watch myself for 40 minutes and then do what? What am I making notes on? I'm just gonna sit there and hate the fact that I touched my face a bunch of times, and why do I keep putting, my hands in my pockets or whatever the fuck it is? I'll just sit there and judge myself.
Yeah, but we do lose a lot of those gold sets where you're like, or some gold moments like we've had the last couple of days of like crowd stuff where you're like, that could have worked on camera.
That could have worked on camera, yeah, and it would have made it for a great little fucking. Yeah. Oh, some of them are like, well, that would have been a viral moment. The person's, we had a 6-month dating contract. What?
Yeah,
but I know that I'm too lazy to like sit down and edit it for an hour to get 30-second interesting clip or whatever. That could have totally propelled my career. Like Steph Tolev, like we were talking in the fucking, what do you call it, green room last night about how Steph's viral, her videos were what got her noticed by Bill Burr.
Well, I opened for her for that was actually a really good moment of mine I had last year. I opened for Just for Laughs in Vancouver, and we've been friends for like 20 years.
Steph's great.
And I was like, can I record my set off your phone? Like, because I won't have time to set mine up and then set yours up.
Yeah.
There's only one place to record it. She's like, yeah. Just use my phone, plug in the mic, or use my phone. So I was going to record my set, and then put her phone on to record her set, and then I
tripped through the cables and unplugged everything.
I fucked up her set.
No,
so she didn't record it. And so what had happened was you had to focus it. Like, you have to press the screen.
It's all blurry for hers?
And the audio guy's like, he's like, I got it. So just kept jumping around and becoming blurry. And she had a viral moment like she does. So she comes up, she's watching, she's like, I can't fucking use any of this. And I felt like such a bag of shit. Cause she's like, for sure this would have gotten, she had such a good interaction. And I was just like, fuck. Maybe that's one of my shitty moments.
I love you're like, I did have another good moment.
Yeah, thanks. I had a good moment and then a shitty moment at the same time. Good moment opening for Steph Toll. Shitty moment when I fucked up her video. This all happened in a split
Walked off
second.
stage, a tripped off. The sound guy's like, hey, it's not bad for your first time.
Not bad for your first time. Yeah. Thanks, Steph. Can I open for you next time? Maybe not. Okay, don't worry about it.
Did she? But she's a good person.
Oh,
she probably was like,
friends.
Whatever.
Yeah, no, we're fine. We're friends. She's great.
I'm sure she, again, if anyone who's close with you knows you're a good guy. So they would know you would feel appropriately bad about.
Yes, yeah.
I will
feel like shits.
Ogre fingers and fucking up her phone.
Yeah, my God. Yeah. But yeah, so that's advice. You record your stuff. That's good.
Also, don't let Efthimios touch your setup.
Don't keep me anywhere near.
Yeah. Go ahead and just plug your shit into mine. Just make sure you put it back the way you found it.
Nope.
So you said a second relationship. Was it after the second relationship that you? No, don't worry. We're not going to dive too deep into that one. You found someone else. Okay, two rapid fire questions. Where did you meet number two?
Also, after both of them weren't at the show, but I met her after a show. It's called the Drake Hotel in Toronto.
Okay. I've heard of it. They used to have a room down in the basement, right?
Yeah, so I did the room downstairs, and then we'd go to the patio on the roof and drink and have fun, whatever. So I met her there, and then she was in a relationship at the time, but she had my name. And then it was like 6 months later that she found me, and she's like, "Oh, I'm single now." And then that one was rapid fast. Like we got engaged very quickly. Like
How soon?
Like I would say 6 or 7 months. I could propose.
Okay,
maybe 8 months.
Does she have a only 3 in Canada name?
What's that?
Does she have a only 3 in Canada?
She
name?
Does. Yes.
Seriously? Well, fuck, you already did it once. Let's do it again.
I'm not gonna do it again. So
you don't her first name? You wouldn't?
I'm not giving her first
name. All right. Will you tell me off mic? The name's fascinating. It's fascinating.
No, they're both unique names. So I'll tell you off. I'll tell you
after
the show. Yeah. So that one went quick, and that one was kind of like, oh, you can only do comedy until you're 50, and then you have to retire. Kind of.
That's what she said.
Kind of thing, but. I won't blame the relationship on that, but I just remember the comment because of the first one with the trajectory. It was just like, oh, you can't do comedy forever. Like you have to like settle down. She's like, so when do you think you'll be ready to have children? And I was being half joking, but I was also probably being serious. I was just like, oh, 55. And she's just like all just flush. Like, what? So
this was early in the relationship or after you were already engaged?
We got engaged, called it off, and we got back together for like another year almost after, like 6 months later. And then it was just like never the same after you call it off. It's like, it's too late. And then again, I think she's married. I know she's married and has kids. So that didn't work out. But that one ended quickly. It was like a fraction of the other one lengthwise.
How many years total would you say?
I say with her, I feel it was like, it couldn't have been more than, it was like 2 or 3 maybe total, like with everything.
Even with the back together year?
Yeah. I think total, like 3, let's say, yeah.
So it's like a fucking whirlwind romance where you get together, it's hot and heavy. All right, let's fucking get married.
Exactly. Yeah.
And she's like, you can only do stand up till you're 50. And you're like.
She's like, yeah, there's an 8, you can't do this forever kind of thing. You have to figure out what else you're going to do after that.
And you're like, let's get married. You'd already
this is
after engagement. Okay, because I was going to say, some chick is like, well, you can only. I'm like, Rodney Dangerfield started in his 50s, didn't he? Like
40s, yeah. This was after we got together. After we called it off. She's kind of like, okay, well, we're back together. Maybe we're not going to get married right away. We'll just be like partners for a long time, and then just slowly deteriorated. And then, yeah, we were living together, and then I remember I had a New Year's gig in like Muskoka Cottage Country. And for like a Tyler Morrison gig, and the day before we're staying at her parents' house because we just moved from one place and we're going to move to the other place. So we had like this buffer where we were going to stay with the parents for a little bit, and then so I have my pickup truck is just full with my stuff because like I'm like, tomorrow we got to drive up to this Muskoka gig for New Year's. She's just like, I don't think I'm going to go. I don't think this is. I think this is it.
That's it. Just out of nowhere, so she just dropped it on you?
Yeah, it wasn't really a drop. I mean, it'd already been pretty up and down.
Right.
So I had to drive to this Muskoka gig in a snowstorm with like my pickup truck rammed with like Rubbermaid boxes with just my stuff.
Oh, you're like, I'm moving out.
I had nowhere to go. So like I had no place to stay. So I was just like driving in the snowstorm in this pickup truck with me and the other comic, and everything is just packed to the roof with all my shit.
So wow, what a way to do it to you. I didn't get this gig, but get your shit out of here too.
Yeah, today's the day. Yeah. New Year, right? She's like, oh, it's a new year. Start fresh.
Oh, that's so for her, it was a resolution or whatever. And it's like, oh, okay.
No, but it was time. She made the right call. She should have walked away a lot earlier.
Sure. But I mean, fuck, you can't let me do the gig and come back. I gotta go figure out a gig and all my shit at the same time.
Well, I had to pack my shit at her parents' house. So they're there somewhere. Like they lived on a piece of big land. So like, you're just kind of doing this.
You lived with her and her parents?
It was literally, so we were living in an apartment, and then we decided that we were not going to stay at that apartment anymore. So now she's like, well, we're near to my parents. Let's just move our stuff there until we find another place. So in that, it was not that long. We're literally like a few days at her parents' house. And then I'm like, we got this New Year's gig. So I'm going to drive up there. So actually it's like Christmas. Everything's fucked up at this time of year. And then she's like, I'm not going to go. I don't think this is going to turn into anything of significance with us. So I had to like pack it all in front of her and then just kind of slowly drive away. And it's
they're all sitting on the porch drinking coffee, watching you just lug fucking busted ass Rubbermaid pack. Yeah. And then, the look on your face was like,
love that. And I love their family. They're like, the best. They're great people. And which is always hard in a relationship. If you get along with the family, it's just, not everyone. You don't always hit the lottery on that, but I did with her family. So, yeah.
Well, that's depressing.
These are your questions.
No, hey, and I'm just joking. I mean, it's not. I mean, it's life, right? It's stuff that people go through. Like it's. I'm sorry that happened. So was it after that? I feel like
these questions are now making you think of your stuff too. So
always.
I can feel that. Too.
Always. But I had it there. Like, so I didn't realize you were engaged twice. I didn't realize that. So like earlier, you're like, after the second relationship is when you moved to Vancouver. Is that have anything to do with it? Were you like, I need to get a fresh spot, or like what? Why did you decide to move to Toronto?
Maybe unconsciously it was in the back of my head, but no, I did this. I did an acid trip for the first time in Toronto, like after that breakup.
Okay.
And it kind of, not to like big up acid, but it did kind of like reset a part of me. It was just like, it just took a lot of the worry. It just made everything smaller.
Okay.
And because my friends were like, oh, come out west, like check it out. And I would be going and doing runs out west, but I was just like, I was out there and some shows fell through, and it just gave me some perspective to be like, oh, maybe I'll just stay out here. Like I like it out here. And then I never came back. I didn't move to Vancouver. I just stayed in Vancouver.
Really?
Because now, like all that stuff.
So that was part of my question. Is like, how does one prepare to move? You were just there, and you're like, fuck all my shit back home.
So all my shit. So I moved out with her, right? So I take all my shit. I moved back home, and then I'm just going to go on the road as often as possible, right? So I went to Vancouver and Alberta, and I went to Saskatchewan. In between that time, I went there twice. So I was home with my parents, but not really. It was just kind of like in transition. So all my stuff's just that's sitting there in their basement, whatever, in these boxes. And then I do a run in Alberta and Saskatchewan, and then Vancouver, and then Alberta, Vancouver, and then some gigs fell through. And some comics just kept giving me gigs to keep me out there to make up for the money I lost in this Alberta gig.
Right.
And then I was just like, oh, fuck it. I'm staying. Like, I was just like, I didn't even tell my parents right away. I'm just like, I live in Vancouver now. I just stayed.
Did you have like someone who's like, yo, you can be my roommate or whatever?
Yeah, my buddy Chris Griffin. I lived with him.
Okay.
Yeah. We're like best buds out there. I was just living with him in like this small apartment, whatever. It was great. Yeah. I never came back.
And how long ago was that?
End of 2016. And I had a one-man show called Disengaged.
Right.
And I debuted it that year, and I performed it at the Vancouver and Montreal and Toronto. And it was talked about calling off 2 weddings and then moving to Vancouver. And then like I found someone there. I was in a relationship there for a bit. And then, but yeah, that was...
You didn't get engaged that time?
Didn't get engaged. No. People just always think I'm going to get engaged anytime I'm in a... They're waiting.
I mean, like
it's funny. It's hilarious. But
yeah,
like, I'm not,
I would say eventually you learn your lesson and you're like, I'm going to wait until I'm sure. Have you been in a few relationships out there or just the one?
Just the one. Yeah.
There's no judgment.
Just the one. Yeah.
Well, that's cool. Dated a lot of people?
No, actually, I would say I haven't really dated a lot in the last couple of years. Would I say a couple of years? I haven't had a girlfriend. I haven't had someone like, I'm steady or I'm seeing or exclusive.
Right.
I haven't had anything that nothing really of substance.
Just sport fucking?
I wouldn't even call it that. There's nothing really going on. I've just been focused on like trying to finish school and then taking it easy, but nothing serious. Yeah, nothing on the horizon.
Is what it is. My experience has never been, I'm not the kind of person to do like a one night stand or anything, but you're a tall, good looking dude, comedy. I could see women throwing themselves at you after a show.
I've had women come up to me after the Disengaged show. I'm like, did you not just watch the show? Like, what do you think is happening here? It's like, that's so honest. I'm like, yeah. But
it
also,
was.
It is.
Yeah.
It's also like, but they're just seeing through the show. That was like, did you watch it, right? You did listen to the parts where I called out 2 engagements like recently? Yeah.
But I mean, talking about it, it sounds like there was 2 relationships that, and forgive me from my armchair position of just listening, is like, these are 2 people who were like, didn't sound like they really believed in what you were doing, because they're like, it's like they gave you a timeline of like, well, you can do it until this time. It's like, yeah, but what, like George Carlin did it till the day he died. That's what I would like to do. I would like to do this until I'm dead. I don't want to be like, oh, I'm just going to do it. It's not a means to an end to me. Like, some people even now get into stand-up because they want to be in movies. And I'm like, go audition for movies. I like doing stand-up. That's why I'm doing stand-up.
Yeah, no, I don't want to act at all. I did, but I don't really care for it now. But
I would if it was offered to me, but it's not my goal.
Yeah, it's another career. That's a different career.
Yeah.
Acting is not the same as comedy. It's like asking me to start singing. Like, I'm not a singer. I would say... So I would not put it all on them that not believe in me. It's just like there is a portion of they believed in me as much as I was believing in me. So it's just like, because like I haven't done everything I need to do to be more successful on, let's say, there's things I could be doing more for my own career. So, and like I was obviously going through this period of like, I'm up and down. Like, what do I really want? How do I want this to look? So I think the more you believe in yourself, like it's very clear if they're on board or not. But like if you're kind of wavering or you're not sure where you're at, then it's just kind of almost gives them an out. Like it's just like, well, I'm on board as much as you're on board. But if you're not on board, then I'm not on board at all. Like it's kind of weird. So it is a 2-way street. So I don't want to put it all on them they didn't believe in me, but because like
I don't. Yeah, and I don't mean it that ugly. Like, oh, they don't believe in you. But I mean it's like. I didn't have the same experience that you did with family where it was like, oh, it's a cute thing. But then you're like, oh, I want to take it seriously. Like, what the fuck's wrong with you? Like, I didn't have that. I was the last person in my life that thought I should do comedy.
Right.
You know what I mean? Everybody else is like, oh, you should do it. You should do it. My mother used to say it like when I was in elementary school and I would get in trouble. She would tell my principals, oh, well, what if he grows up to be a famous comedian? So like my mom was like, the job I had when I started stand up tried to force my hand. Mm-hmm. And I told them like, they're like, when's this comedy phase going to be over? And I'm like, I actually enjoy it. You think anybody gives a fuck what I'm doing selling cell phones? Like, but they're like, well, we need you here. We need you to stay focused with us. And it's like, it's going to be us or that. I'm like, if you force my hand, you're not going to like what I choose. Mm. You know what I mean? And they did. And so my mom was like, listen, if you want to move home, you can stay here rent free if you pursue comedy. She's like, I'll support that. She's like, I'm on board. So I had the support from family. That's like, go and do it, So I guess I've always had that. But again, the second most important person to me, which was my partner, was early on was like, I don't know if I want to be with someone that. So it made me doubt wanting to chase something because I also like it was the first important relationship in my life. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So it was really hard to chase something that meant pushing something else away. So as much as I can't say that she wasn't supportive, she wasn't like, you're not funny. And then, throughout the course of a relationship, she's gotten more supportive. But that shit always sits with you. You know what I mean? Where it's like, oh, I don't know if I want to be with someone who's going to be gone or whatever. Especially since the point in my career where I don't leave for long periods of time. I left longer in marketing to do marketing tours than I have for stand-up. So I don't know. It's one of those things where I guess if it's there that person's not not really on board with it. That they're not like, you chase it, you do what you got to do. Like, I do what I love, you do what you love.
Yeah. So in that regard, no, I didn't have that either. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't have like full support, but yeah, it definitely puts like some doubts in your head. You're like, well, if this like maybe I shouldn't be doing this. There's a lot of that. Like, oh, maybe I should do something else, or
Right.
Yeah.
But like you said, like it's a part of who we are. Like, you can't not do that
But
thing.
I've also been on the road a lot too, so it's like that's also hard too on a relationship. It's like you have to be with someone that's like cool with you being on the road or feels comfortable with you being gone. Yeah,
Right.
That's not easy either. So
Well, it can always be a means to an end. It's like, hey, someday maybe I'll make enough from this that you get to come too. And we get to enjoy different places and travel while working. That would be great.
Yeah, definitely.
So last question, which wasn't even on my list, but you were talking about the visa, man. How did so you have a visa? You can go and work in the States anytime you want.
I have a visa right now. Yes. Well, I think it renews after every so often, but yeah.
What, it automatically renews?
No, you got to like apply for it again. But I have a visa now. It's like a catch-22. So I had a visa. This is the second run through, but the first one expired during COVID, so I lost a lot of opportunities. And then now I'm in school, so it's just like I have to. Once school's done, I'll be able to travel and do.
Is this the one that only allows you to do stand up, or is this where you can go and live in the States if you want?
No, it's just for doing stand up.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have a green card or anything like that. But
is that what the green card is?
Green cards, you can live there, and you're not quite a citizen, but you can do whatever you want.
But you can get a job at Starbucks to support doing stand up at night.
Insurance number. Well, you can do anyone's, but yeah, you can just do whatever you want.
Right. Whereas the ones, I know that there's one where it's like you can do stand up and nothing else. Like that's the only thing. Is that what you have?
Yeah.
Is it expensive?
Yeah, it's expensive.
Do you feel like throwing a number out?
No, it's just because it's more. This one's like I can't get into this view.
Is this the circus one?
No, it's not the circus one.
Okay, but you know what I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And that's not the green card. That's called a P1.
P1.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can have a P1 is where it's like a group of like you have a visa with a bunch of people.
Right.
Yeah. So I've had your O1 is the one that is just your visa. Yeah, you can just go do down there and do stand up or whatever.
I've heard that one is around like $5,000 to get.
Yeah. So I also did it. I also got my visa with Comedy Records. So it's like it's a different setup. I won't really get into it here, but yeah, it's not a straight up. Wasn't a straight up. I'm just going to go get a visa, but. Yeah.
But if you wanted to, you could set up a bunch of weekends in a row with clubs and go and work.
Technically, yeah. If I so choose, I could try a middle or something. I'm not going to headline every club down there because there's tiers, and I have a huge following. So,
right. But I mean, even to just like in my I don't know, something stirring in me right now. Where I'm like, I would love to go down to the States for like a month and just drive from city to city, showcasing for some of those clubs. Go, when can I come back? Or, do you have any paid stuff, whatever? I'll use it for gas to the next fucking city.
Yeah. So my goal would be like, once I graduate which sounds weird. I'm MA40, but I'm going to graduate first. And then like, you can go down to Seattle, maybe showcase there or, make something good, make a trip out of it. Yeah.
That's it? Just Seattle?
Not Seattle. Like I've performed.
I live close to New York, so I'm probably going to go down.
Yeah. I don't want to live in the States. That's the problem. So
never
live in the States. Never.
Why?
I just don't like it. I don't like.
It's fair. I don't want to live in Toronto. I don't like it. Well, and I know it's something that if I want to grow, but even listening to my Toronto comic friends, they're like, yeah, there's only so much work, and then you got to go to the States anyway. So why start here if I can just immediately go down? Like I've already got American comic friends that could introduce me to people. So why not just go down there and start?
Right.
You know what I mean? If I'm gonna jump in with both feet, which has been a very long time since I've done, why not just go down and start? Why come here and waste 5 years fucking around in Toronto before I have to go down and start again anyways?
Yeah, if you're going to just start again anyways, then definitely go to New York or something.
Yeah, like I'll just drive every weekend.
Just head down there.
Yeah, every weekend, 7 hours, but at least it's probably cheaper than fucking living there.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to pick a spot, it seems like you're more inclined to New York than the West Coast, right?
It's just that it's close in the population density because like Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, like all of those places are still relatively close. Yeah.
And I've had gigs in Philly and New Jersey. I did a show and I was at Connecticut and I took the train back to New York for a midnight gig at the New York Comedy Club. So it's like, you have all those around there. You're right.
But you need the P1 or no, that's
you just need you just
O1.
need the government to acknowledge that you're allowed to work in the States. Yeah.
So it's not as hard as the green card where you got to get a bunch of people to write shit for you. And
You still got to get people to write shit for you. The green card is it's a lot more work to get done.
Okay. I won't make it podcast stuff because it's probably boring for them to listen to, but I would pick your brain about like, hey, what about this and how do you do that and whatever it is. Cause I find that stuff fascinating. Like ultimately I would rather be in the States. I feel like the American culture appreciates stand up more than Canadian culture. Mm-hmm. I think we have a lot of talent up here, but I think that they are way more inclined to listen to comedy and they want the comedy as opposed to up here where there's 5 cities that do it. And you know, they're $800 plane tickets between each one of them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Well, we got one show left. There's no point plugging the dates here because this episode, people, anytime someone Googles your name, they'll find this and they'll be able to listen to some stuff about you. Is there anything that you want to tell people or anything that we didn't establish? What are you studying now? Philosophy, right?
Yeah, that's really been my focus for the last few years. So it's weird because like I haven't really been doing a lot of stuff on the road. So, but yeah, this is just something I've kind of really dedicated myself to finishing. So
forgive me for asking because I don't know how to say it without it sounding like judgmental or whatever. But I'm fascinated. What do you do with it? What do you do with the philosophy degree?
It's not
now that it's done.
It's not what I do with it. It's what it's done for me already. So it's like, it's just personal growth. It's just like knowing myself more. Listen, society is built off of philosophy.
Of course.
Everything. So it's just more, it's an expansive way. It's changed the way you're writing differently. You're thinking differently. It's the challenge of finishing this degree. So it's not necessarily, and everyone asks that, like, what are you going to do with this? It's
right.
Like, it's not so I can go out and get a job. It's just,
right.
It's just a personal growth thing for myself.
It's like going to therapy almost, where you're like, I'm just looking at retooling and re-understanding how my brain works. So with philosophy, it's changing perspectives and things like that for yourself.
Well, the whole world, like you're just kind of like as a comedian, we have ideas. So we're often philosophizing in a sense of trying to see the world through our eyes and like bringing that to the stage. Whereas philosophy, you're just taking those ideas and you're also finding a way, or you're learning how to expand on those ideas and write about those ideas and explain them back to people, but also for yourself. You're just expanding your mind. Really, that's the main reason.
Right.
Yeah.
No,
but like if you want to get, it's like, are you going to get into law school? Obviously, that's another question people ask because a lot of people.
Do you need philosophy for law?
You should definitely have a philosophy base to be a lawyer. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's comes from philosophy.
Okay.
As does everything else. Medicine, ethics, all our morals, how to build a society, politics, all rooted in
right.
The OGs of philosophy.
The OGs of philosophy.
Aristotle, Socrates, and Plato. That's where it all kind of started.
Who's your favorite between those three? And who belongs on the Mount Rushmore as the fourth?
As the fourth, that's not even my fourth. I don't really have a Mount Rushmore.
No, but I'm saying that your average mouth breather should be able to say, Aristotle, Socrates, and
Plato. Yeah,
and
those
Plato.
are. Yeah, and I don't really have I like Aristotle. They're all. Yeah, I mean they're all great. I mean, Plato's just his writings is based off Socrates. But my favorite philosopher is his name's Soren Kierkegaard. He's a Dutch philosopher from the 1800s. He's really good.
He's really good.
He's the birth.
What are his hits?
Existentialism. It's kind of like meaning and everything. All the self-help, like all that kind of stuff is just, cherry picked from like philosophers from, let's say, the last 150 years. They kind of talk about finding meaning and your existence, yourself, like finding your true self. That's all based on philosophy. Or Dostoevsky's another philosopher. He's a writer, but yeah, that's all that stuff. That's the core where it all comes from. Existentialism. Yeah, good stuff. You could have a whole podcast on that. But.
Well, I love that stuff. I got a bunch of philosophy books at home, and someday I'll read them. But I gotta basically every big concept thing. I need to get the For Dummies version, even though I don't have it. I have a bunch of philosophy books at home that you know what it is? Just studying is just so you can learn how to read those, because it's
tried to read any of that stuff on my own.
On its own? Okay.
I'm lost. Yeah. So it's just kind of like rereading it and studying it and how to understand what they're saying, because it takes a while. Like, because a lot of these writers, it's originally written in another language, so it's very dense, and they're not the best writers. They just have these ideas, right. So you kind of have to like get through the muck to kind of get to the bottom of it.
When you're in school for philosophy, are you taking like a bunch of other courses, or is it like I go to school every day for my philosophy class?
You have to take you do have to take prerequisites. Like you have to take some stuff, like you have to take 2 science courses, a couple English courses to get your credits for school. So
what did you take?
I got like some fucking seeing space from the orbit of Earth. That was a science class I had to take because I wanted to find the easiest fucking science class.
Seeing space. How many classes could that? That's a year of seeing Earth from space.
It's all on satellites and how they work, and how we used to navigate the Earth through the stars. And it's like all the details. There's some really cool things.
That's the easy one.
That's the easiest one.
Astronomy sounds difficult. I have an astronomy book at home too.
No, astronomy. Astronomy is harder than I thought because I'm not going to take chemistry. I wasn't going to take biology or physics because it's like
physics would make my head explode.
I haven't been in school forever. I haven't been in school in 20 years, so I can't take any science class. And then like I have like a theater class I got to take this last semester. So.
They make you take theater for philosophy.
Well, you have to take.
So you do the Hamlet.
Every arts program you have to take some English credits. So it's like an English credit requirement.
Okay. What were the English courses you took?
The first one was learning how to, it was on academic writing, how to write like an academic paper. And it was on video games and diversity. It had a theme.
Okay.
So I had a whole class on diversity in video games. And like This Is Us. Is that a game?
The Last of Us.
The Last of Us.
This Is Us. That was a TV show with inclusivity as well.
A lot of this was based on the
game. As soon as you said diversity in video games, the first thing in my head is Last of Us Part 2 had so much diversity in it.
Yeah, so Last of Us, which this is before the show came out. So
you have no idea how much I've talked about The Last of Us on this podcast. So my audience are going to go, how the fuck did he find a way in this conversation?
So I talked about The Last of Us. And then, so I finally saw The Last of Us because
garbage. Again, we're right into I won't. Don't worry, onesies. I won't talk about it.
Such a good show and
bad.
So good.
Did you play the games?
No.
That's why you think it was a good show. Okay. Yeah,
that would make a difference. Yeah, I can imagine the storylines.
Literally, the interview I did before this with McLennan, half the fucking podcast was about the Last of Us show, and I don't know, like this is so, dude, you have no idea how funny it is that didn't go anywhere fucking near it, and then you're like, yeah, I did diversity in video games, yeah, the This Is Us, and like the Last of Us, you're like, yeah, the show was so good. I'm like, don't do it.
But what are the odds? I forgot about that course.
It's so funny.
I will say this.
It's only because my listeners don't want to hear me talk about it anymore.
I will say this. I know in the video game they never explored the gay relationship between the two guys that they get supplies from in the first.
They did if you picked up so you've played that type of video game before, right?
I've never played
shooters.
I've played first shooter games, but I haven't played this game at all.
So in this one, what happens is you just know that Bill had a partner who got sick of him and left.
Right.
So, but if you're playing and you're walking around in rooms and you're picking up supplies for shit, if there's notes, if you pick it up and you read what it says, you read like a note from Frank saying like all you wanted to do was survive and you know, like I wanted to have a life together and you weren't for that. You were this. So the TV, one of the things that I talk about quite a lot is how they changed the dynamic of those characters. So you're saying in the show, and you're like in the game, they never explored it. Yeah. Well, they did give you opportunities to see what happened, except in the game, that character was more of a juxtaposition of Joel being the kind of guy who was just trying to survive. Right. And here's an example of a guy who had someone and he was just trying to survive, and that pushed them away. So because they never did that in the show, instead it was just an episode about LGBTQ. And as much as it was a lovely story, the role that it served for the story was not the same as it did in the game. In the game, all of these encounters that you see were all with Joel and Ellie.
Right.
So Joel and Ellie and Bill are walking through this town where he set booby traps everywhere and whatever. They spend a lot of time together. And he's kind of in a fatherly role telling Ellie and Bill to stop fighting with each other. So he's forced to be a parental role, which is more of the whole him identifying her with his daughter that died. And then also at the same time, seeing this guy who's just focused on surviving, no friendliness, no whatever, so it's kind of like it forced him to be in a parental role with Ellie, hey, you guys knock it off, playing the parent of just you two stop fighting. And then at the same time, seeing this guy who lost the only person he cared about because his focus on survival was so much so that. So it actually had an infinitely more important role, character development in the game. And then the show, all it is we're watching two gay guys that Joel and Ellie never met. Right? So our characters are Joel and Ellie. So how does an hour with these two gay guys when they just leave them a note saying, oh, if you love someone, protect them. Tess in the episode before, oh, if we protect as many as we can. The episode before where we get a flashback to his daughter dying. Like we didn't have to be, literally every episode ends with you being spoon fed. Like, oh, he better take care of Ellie. We're like, we get it. They didn't have to do that in the game and we still understood it. And instead we got a bunch more time with our protagonists and seeing him kind of, you know what I mean? Listen, it's not a new story. It's planes, trains, and automobiles. It's fucking Due Date, Rain Man. We're going across the country on an adventure. We're going to end up close by the end.
Right.
You know what I mean? So,
but
that's why I
didn't.
didn't
Talked about this a few times.
Dude.
We won't get.
Yeah. Sorry. Again, I'm onesies. It's E's fault. But I can understand why you like the show. The show wasn't the worst adaptation of a video game. But in terms of diversity in the game, the second one, The Last of Us Part 2, which you haven't seen any of on the show.
Right.
The game is incredibly diverse. There's trans people, there's lesbians, there's so many different, there's so much diversity in the race of like the people that you're killing. So instead of it being like a bunch of white guys, whatever, you have Asians, you have men, you have women, you have black people, like you have, there's so many different types of people, and even all your protagonists are essentially,
and you can kill all of them if you want.
You really can.
Nice.
You really can. You can equality through murder. But the second game in like absolutely has an infinite amount of diversity.
That's
in
what
it,
that
which was
course.
Great.
The course focused on that second because the professor is a gaming nut, and she's has disabilities. So for her, it's all about inclusivity. Because I guess games are varying so much now in like levels.
Sure.
So like it's not just you don't have to play the hardest level. Like if you have
difficulty,
right? So you can make it a little bit easier for more inclusive for everyone.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about video games, but anyway.
Well, The Last of Us Part 2, not only did they have that other stuff, but in terms of inclusivity, they actually added a ton of colorblind modes in the game. They have a bunch of difficulty settings. They have a bunch of controller differences. So for example, like if you have bad visibility, everything on the screen is in grayscale, except enemies will be red. You're like gold. Items on the ground are green. So it's like literally you can just be looking at the screen and it's like, okay, red's coming towards you. You're gold. You can see things that really stand out because in the regular play, it's too hard to see. But that was all designed for inclusivity. So people with accessibility, like, if you have cerebral palsy or something, you can't hit the buttons very fast. A lot of games with quick time events are doing that, where it's like, oh, press square, press X. Like you have to do it quick. It gives you more time and things like that. So to be inclusive.
Right. Yeah, so that's what that course was about. But yeah,
did you enjoy that course?
It it caught me off guard because I didn't know I was going to be taking such a course on diversity right off the bat. But because I knew the campuses are different now, right? They're more that way. They're more diverse, inclusive than when I was in school 20 years ago. Mind you, I went to York, so that was already that was always a diverse school to begin with.
But yeah, so that's a course now, diversity in video games.
No,
not just diversity.
No, the course is on academic writing, but the professor chooses the theme of what academic writing we're going to focusing on.
Oh, I see.
And she chose that's her expertise.
Diversity in video games.
Literally, that's her thing. Diversity.
So every single person in that class wrote a paper about diversity in video games.
Yeah, so I had to write one on The Last of Us and comparing that to I think Tomb Raider or something, or the Lara Croft character.
Right.
Yeah, anyways.
But were you writing on the game or the show?
We're writing on the games. Yeah, the games.
So,
there was no show when that course came out.
I see.
The show had not been released yet. So I only know about the second season of The Last of Us, the game, and the first season I only know from the show. Yeah.
I see. So because you know the second game, you know what's going to happen in the second season.
I know that I know some of the relationship stuff, but I don't know any big details.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well,
and now it's kind of becoming. We're going to start talking about the last.
No. I've already said enough. But for you mentioning like, oh, I like this thing, and the thing is about the show is if you don't know anything about the game, I can see how it would be enjoyable. But a lot of people are like, oh, I didn't like this much. Like, it's not a bad story. It's just, if you take a story, like, I think there was 9 episodes. And if you play the game on the easiest setting, you can get through it in about 8 to 9 hours.
Oh, okay.
It is very cinematic. It is very rich storytelling. So the thing was, in the show, they would take an episode, and instead of just having everything kind of happen the same way it has in the game, narratively, like it's a game versus a show, there's going to be differences. Right. But because it's story-wise, they could have done the same 8-9 hours on TV, and it would have been a great story. Instead, you get a whole episode where they expand on characters that weren't in that didn't have any backstory in the game, and it didn't affect the story because in the game it was just, these are bandits that you need to kill.
Okay.
But in the show, it's Henry killed my father and had my father. It's like it's all this expansion on nothing. And instead of getting an hour with our protagonists, we're getting an hour with side people that are going to be dead by the end of the episode anyways, because their existence in the first place in the game was to be some level of contrast to Joel's position and the outside world. Like, hey, you remember, like, you were like this, but like that, if you keep down this route, this can happen to you. So, you know what I mean? Like, he learned through seeing these contrasts on his way. Whereas in the show, he's not witnessing any of this stuff. We're as the audience just staying with these other people. At the end of the episode, someone just says to him, hey, you better take care of people you love. You know what I mean? And he's yeah, I get it. Everyone's telling me that. Shut the fuck up. You know what I mean? So it was, that's what I didn't like about the show. It was not that these interesting little episodes about other groups of people aren't well written and aren't, well told. Yeah. It's just that we're sacrificing time with our protagonists in exchange for that. So when we get to the end and we're supposed to put ourselves in the protagonist's shoes, we've barely spent any time with them. And so it doesn't seem as meaningful. Whereas when you're playing the game, you are Joel and you're with Ellie for like 9 hours. So you have conversations, you're walking and talking and you're learning more about those characters. So they're endearing themselves to you. You know what I mean? And Joel and Ellie are with these other people from the show. So we see how they're taking it in. Yeah. So it was just, sure, it was a fine show, but it's almost like the nerdy version of saying, oh, well, the game was much better than the book or whatever. The book was much better than the movie. Well, yeah. Anyways, I think this was a good podcast, man. Fucking look at that, gang. We almost made it through the entire thing without The Last of Us coming up somehow. Yeah, somehow. And then you're like, video game diversity. And I like I said, silently in my head, I'm going, like The Last of Us Part 2 had a lot of diversity. And you're like, like This Is Us. I'm like, The Last of Us? For fuck's sakes. Well, dude, I can't, you're going to hear palpably the audience's eye rolls the second they hear those words come out of my mouth. The Last of Us? Like, no, don't do it. No, don't do it. But they're just listening to me live explaining to you. But that's cool for someone who hasn't seen both. Ryan McGlennon was the sweetest about it. He's like, you know what? It's their game and their story. And if they want to change, they gotta go, fuck you for making me sound like a fucking angry fat nerd. Dude, I appreciate you doing this.
Oh, thank you, man. I had a great time.
Thank you. I'm disappointed. It's like, great talk. It's our last show tonight. You're gone tomorrow.
I know, it's sad.
Is what it is. You're going to go back to Vancouver and quit comedy.
Yeah, this is it. No, I'll be back anyway.
For those of you hearing this is going to come out on Friday.
Okay.
So you're going to be in Ottawa. So my Wednesday podcast that I release, I'll be sure to plug it and let everyone know that you're in Ottawa to see it and that your episode's coming out on Friday. But I appreciate the chat, man. You're gonna have a one-man podcast episode now.
Let's do it. I'm excited.
Where do you have anywhere you want people to follow you?
They can just follow me on Instagram if they can spell my name, but
go for it. You can say it and let's see how close they get.
Efthimios Nasiopoulos.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, the episode will have his name in it, so you could use that as a plug. Plus, I'm going to put links to your Instagram or anything. Do you have any albums or anything that I can link to on Spotify or something?
Yeah, both my albums you can find on Spotify and on Apple or iTunes, whatever.
I forgot to ask this too, but I'm going to try to find parts in our episode. I really should have been writing down little sound notes, but do I have your permission to snag a couple bits and I'll pepper them into the episode so they can hear your stand up?
Snag away.
Sweet. Yeah. So I'll have an outro one where they'll hear something. Cool. We'll throw to it.
Awesome.
What do you is there a bit you think should be the last one I play? You can throw to that and that'll give us a nice exit.
The first bit on my second album, the title of it, Don't Worry Speaks English. You could just play that bit. Yeah, because I think I'm trying to think what's on there. That'll be good. Or the school shooter's joke, but that might be a little bit too much for the.
No, my audience is fine with everything.
Okay, that's a good joke too.
Yeah. Okay. Cool beans. Well, thanks.